Today's episode of Northern Lights is presented by North Star Law Group, your trusted partner in Minnesota's burgeoning legal cannabis industry. Whether you're just starting out or looking to expand, attorney Jen Riza and her team will help you understand the latest developments, scope out risks, and find a compliant path forward in this rapidly changing field. Visit northstarlaw.com and let North Star Law Group guide you through the legal landscape with confidence. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Northern Lights. I'm your host, Tanner, joined today by Kayla, John, and Marcus. Hey there,
Hello.
guys.
Peace.
Hi.
Good evening.
Welcome. Dabbler Depot Seed and Sesh. Happy to have you guys back out here.
St. Paul, Minnesota.
It's nice being here.
Oh, yeah. Another episode of Northern Lights. We got a ton of news that we're talking about today. We also got some fun events that we're going to be previewing. We want to start by actually previewing a Dabbler Depot event coming up here. So if you listen to this on Monday, coming out tomorrow. If you listen to this on Tuesday, tonight. If you listen to this after that, check out their event calendar for more events. But coming up on Tuesday, we got an awesome class, Doug's Nugs. Super looking forward to that. Coming out here, teaching people how to grow like a pro. Dabbler Depot, we should say it is from 6 to 8 p.m. They are asking for a $20 donation because this one is for the kids. Or we're raising money for the kids. Raising money for the kids.
For the children,
yeah, $20.
not for the children.
Yeah, no, $20 donation for Cookie Card. This is an event for adults to come and learn how to grow cannabis. So come and check it out. And it's instructed by Doug Nug. You get free seeds. It's a really fun time. So come on down. Yeah.
Oh, I just want to add, like, $20 donation, free seeds.
Great
You
deal.
leave making a profit. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah.
And Doug's Nugs presents, this is going to be one of the best classes you can find.
Yes.
And did we mention the children? The money helps the children.
Yeah. The children. The money helps the children.
Money with the children.
Yeah. So come on down, bring a donation, and come and learn how to grow cannabis like a pro. Really looking forward to that one. It's been so cool seeing some of the classes they've been putting on here. I got to come out to one, which was awesome, and I think
I taught a
you
class
hosted
here.
one. Yeah.
Hosted one on 421, the day after 420. It was great. Really pretty space here on Payne Avenue.
Yeah, it is. I mean, every time that we look through this beautiful window right behind you all lovely cameras right now, it's a really cool place.
Yeah, I love seeing it starting to build out more. Like they're getting more and more seed stuff and fertilizers and all that jazz.
Not just the sesh. Now they've got the seed too.
Now they got the seed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we
this
bring
is
the
going to be
sesh.
one of the best cannabis stores in the Twin Cities, I'm sure.
Easily. So 951 Payne Avenue. Come on down. Check out that class on Tuesday. But we also got another event to shout out here. A ball of sorts, if you will. A grower's ball. Kayla, tell us a little bit more about that one.
The Growers Ball of 2024. That is an event actually hosted by Twin Cities THC, partnered with myself with Healing Fear Consulting, my business. It's going to be at the historic Wabasha Street Caves in St. Paul on St. Paul's west side. Friday, June 21st, 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Tickets just went on sale Wednesday. General admission is $30, and VIP, which we only have 50 tickets of, is $75.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's a celebration for the growers. So if you are a grower, this is an event for you to come vibe, come lounge, come network with other growers, and kind of let your guard down and just show off your craft.
Could you let the folks know what the VIPs get?
Oh, absolutely. So our VIP package with your $75 ticket is actually going to include a gift bag. You will get a gangster guided tour through the historic caves.
Cave tour.
You get a cave tour. You get a consumption pass. So we're going to have a consumption area for people. You can also purchase a ticket for that area, even if you don't get a VIP ticket. You'll also get access to the VIP area that will have a flower competition. So we will have some people putting up flower against each other. Lavish Papers is actually going to donate some cones for that. So it's a blind voting. We're going to have colored tipped papers on there so people can vote with their filters pretty much. So we can then find the best grower at the ball.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, and such a fun location for that. I mean, thinking of the history of those caves going back to Prohibition. Well, we might be like exiting what Prohibition looks like here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
It's a cool place to celebrate.
Yeah, it was actually Adam from Twin Cities THC's idea. This was kind of like his idea. He really wanted to do the caves because of the Prohibition historic piece to it. And even with our tours, we're kind of doing like a trafficking theme, which will be really cool. So we're really trying to make it about the growers who have built this cannabis industry, whether it was black market or however they had to do it.
Shout out to the legacy market.
Shout out.
Always shout out to the legacy market.
Still serving us today.
I love that. So Friday, June 21st, 5 to 9.
Yep. It is
Minnesota
also
Growers
formal.
Ball.
We're doing a costume contest as well. Totally
Now I'm
forgot to
there.
mention that. Yep. So St. Paul Cannabis is actually going to sponsor the costume contest as well. So get your 1920s zoot suits and flapper dresses pressed and cleaned.
Very cool. And then where should we send people if they want to go get signed up for that?
Event High is actually going to be where we're selling the tickets out of. Otherwise, Adam and I will also have them in person at different events the next couple of weeks. Cool. Our Instagram has the link on there as well as the Facebook event page.
Awesome. We'll link both of those in the show notes. So if people want to go get signed up for that, definitely check that out.
That sounds like a great event.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot.
Come through, everyone. It's going to be a
up.
great time.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, we've got an action-packed episode a little bit later. We got an interview from Minimum Wage Tim. He'll be coming on talking about his route, not to the cannabis industry, but to the coffee industry. And then a little bit later, we got Dr. Dabs coming back for, guys, the final episode that we got of Cooking with Clem. We're going to be
I
seeing
just
him.
refuse to believe.
We probably got some more in the archive.
party
We'll
time.
bring out at some point.
He's got a
but
recipe or two he can whip.
a couple. Yeah, that's for sure. We're going to see him make some bacon. We're going to see him make some tea. And if you guys have ever wondered how long can Steve and Dr. Dabs stare at a bag of tea steeping before breaking and starting to laugh, you're going to be surprised.
I was just thinking about that last night.
It's a really long amount of time. All right, well,
Sounds like that should be a museum exhibit on a big screen.
what I love is that it's like many minutes. You guys will see if you watch all the way to the end, which we definitely recommend that you should. But there's this moment where Clem just looks up at the camera and you can see he's like, what are we doing right now?
Why are we paying to do this?
Well, should we get to this week's news? We got a lot of stuff to cover.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, we're going to be digging deep into the legislative everything going on there in just a little bit. But first, we got some news from across the state of Minnesota, not directly related to the legislature. So we're going to start with that because we've been talking a lot about the legislature. So yay, non-legislature news. Yay. So the first little piece of news is we've got another band here in Minnesota that's looking at entering the cannabis industry. Now, shout out to Matt DeLong at the Star Tribune and Nuggets for catching this one because
Thanks, Matt.
They've not actually put out any formal information about what their projects looks like. Instead, they received a grant from the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, or DEED, as I'm sure many people know them as, a partnership between the tribe and the community college and an organization called Fond du Lac Band Cannabis.
Okay.
Nice. Shout out to organizing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they've been awarded about $30,000 to help train their employees that are interested in entering the legal industry. So hopefully we see a pretty extensive cannabis program being put on and supported by DEED dollars through tribal colleges.
This is great news. I hope they get more money, and I hope they can grow and thrive.
Yeah, and I hope more people follow the example of like, hey, the state wants the industry, so use their money.
Yes, use their money.
This is a great investment.
It's cool to see this too because I was at the Hemp Expo in April and that was something that OCM brought up was they were actually asked directly. Charlene Briner, the director, was asked, is anyone going to be able to get DEED money before licenses are out? And she said no. So this is really cool to see actually. So I'm glad they got it moving.
Oh, yeah. Starting to see some of that money flowing into the industry to help. I mean, we've talked to so many people over the last couple of months, years, that are interested in getting into this industry. Hopefully there are going to be some routes opening for people that are interested in becoming some of the amazing employees that we need to help run our cannabis program.
Hell yeah.
So, I mean, more to come on this in the future. They actually reached out to the band, Matt DeLong did, and they acknowledged the existence of the project, but declined to answer any other questions. So that's really all that we know right now. More to come.
I'll say very smart move.
Very smart move.
Very smart
Way not
move.
to talk, way to be quiet while you can.
Good on you,
is
Fond du Lac.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's number 5 that we have entering the industry.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
It's kind of crazy, yeah.
Even before licenses are rolling out to the general public, we're starting to see so many tribal governments looking at perhaps cannabis is for us.
Awesome.
How many total tribal governments are there within Minnesota?
11, I believe.
11.
So yeah, right over 10.
Yeah.
I was in Red Lake recently.
So it's right around half.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. I love that they're taking advantage of what the state gave them.
Speaking of which, thank you to our sponsor, NativeCare.
Hey,
Yeah.
Yeah, NativeCare.
the
Shout out to
first.
NativeCare.
Oh, yeah. The first.
Like nationally, I believe this is the first company to sell cannabis on the very first day of legalization. I don't know if any other state had like a cannabis sale on that very first day other than Minnesota.
That's really interesting to think about. Yeah, because
I guess it's not, within their borders.
Yeah, I wonder
You're
if
talking about the effective date when the law becomes effective.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
Shout out NativeCare.
Shout out NativeCare.
Great. Great to
just
hold
like a little tidbit.
Yeah, I like that.
Better
That's
than a Stanley.
Little weed nugget.
I mean, is it true that are the rumors true that they may be getting poised to produce some of the best cannabis flower in Minnesota?
I mean,
that's a rumor I'll believe.
Yeah, I'm optimistic at least to see.
It'll be exciting what happens when the dispensaries open next year. Like which producers' products will become legendary.
I think we're going to have some fun competitions in the future. And if anyone wants to host those and needs a judge, give me a call.
I'm also available. I have experience now, Growers Cup.
Yeah.
Kidding.
I wanted to recognize the best craft cannabis in Minnesota when this becomes prevalent.
Yeah.
Get your stuff cured, people.
There
Get out here.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, some other news. We had a really interesting lawsuit roll into Minnesota this week.
I saw this.
Excited to dig deep into this, especially having Kayla here. But with all of you guys here, excited to talk more about some of the future steps of what action around cannabis could look like, not at the legislative branch, but through the judicial branch. So there was a lawsuit filed by 4 residents here in Minnesota who all grow cannabis at home, saying that they should, under the Minnesota Constitution, be allowed to sell cannabis. Now, we've seen people say that this is their right in the past. Unfortunately, under current reading of Minnesota law, with the interpretation of the Minnesota Supreme Court as it is today, that's not true. But this lawsuit could potentially change that. It was filed on Tuesday, so last week as you're listening to this, really trying to argue that our Constitution, which says we don't need a license to peddle product, should apply to cannabis. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
This is the best way to actually get a definitive answer on the question. It's been, in the Minnesota weed zeitgeist forever that we have this provision in the Constitution. So it's like, let's just figure it out. Let's see what they say. And, the judges are not, I don't actually know. Are judges supposed to be thinking of like, damn, what is this going to do? Or are they just like, is this legal or not?
So in theory, there's supposed to be, balls and strikes is the phrase that they use. They're not supposed to be coming up with new laws, but saying under the interpretation of the laws as it is today, does this allow for this as a right in Minnesota? Previously, when cannabis was banned entirely from being sold, their general justification was, no, you can't sell this. It's a health and safety measure. So that constitutional provision doesn't count because you're not supposed to be able to grow it at all.
Exactly.
Now we can grow it. All of us can legally grow at home. Should we be allowed to peddle the stuff that we grow? Well, these 4 in the Supreme Court case say yes.
I mean, I think this case is they're not going to win. I mean, it's already been proven. It's not that I don't think that they should be able to sell it. I think people should be able to sell it, But if this is an ingestible product that gets people high. It's not like tomatoes.
Oh, you've never had my tomatoes. Nah,
but I'm just saying, Chris Wright, who was one of the loudest proponents
Chris Wright.
of this, he took this to the Minnesota State Supreme Court years ago, and he lost. Article 7, Section 13. I mean, I think that should be the way it goes, but it's not going to be
I feel
the way
like
it goes.
They have a chance because we can homegrow now. It's like,
but they're going to argue the system is going to say, well, if you want to grow to make money, get a license, do it commercially.
Well, so here is their argument that I actually think is sort of interesting. Their argument is, especially in this in-between time, there aren't rules that we can follow.
Correct.
There is no system for us to legally take our product and be able to sell it to others. So, we'll follow all the rules that the state eventually sets up. But for right now, the rules are sell to those over the age of 21, and you can never possess more than 2 ounces in public.
Yes.
And as long as you're following those, under this argument of this filing,
and they're
they
saying,
say
like, I
you should be
can't,
allowed to
like,
sell that.
take Tanner's home grow and go sell it.
No.
Like, it has to be my home grow that I go sell.
Absolutely.
So it's a very limited in that way. And I think they got a shot.
Yeah.
This is kind of what stemmed my caregiver push with everything, because I was raised, again, like I kind of mentioned when Marcus was talking, Chris Wright is a family friend of ours in my family. So like I've been raised again on the importance of Article 13, Section 7, that you do not need a peddler license in the state of Minnesota. However, once I got political this session and started trying to push HF 3766, the caregiver bill, this got brought up to me a lot by politicians on both sides of the aisle, where kind of like Marcus said, it's not tomatoes, it's a different product.
It's psychoactive.
It's psychoactive.
That's why we like it.
A big piece of it too was that a lot of people have overlooked with this. August 1st, we did not legalize the sale of cannabis at all. We just legalized possession, growing, and what's the third one? Possession, growing, and
Use.
Thank you. God, the most important one. We still didn't legalize sales. So this kind of got thrown in my face a lot by politicians trying to push the caregiver program. Because I look at the caregiver program as being an umbrella to this. Because, again, if someone's growing for you, then you kind of know where it is. You should be able to get some incentive off that if they're providing a service to you. This is just a lot more clean cut, and I hope they win. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a medical girl. I don't have enough, I guess, experience in past cases to really put a full judgment on it. 3 of the 4 gentlemen I know personally listed on here, and like I kind of know their argument with it, so I'm really proud of them for pushing it too.
Yeah,
No, I respect it. Don't get me wrong. I respect it. I appreciate it. I hope they win. I just doubt they will.
Yeah, I think you're right on that, only because our politicians in Minnesota aren't fully behind it, and that's what's frustrating.
I'm excited for like the judges to just give like a real clear guidance on this, because like, and I'm glad they're doing this again, like regardless of how it's decided, because like if we need to answer all these like gray area questions now before it's like, for sure, there's an industry really up and going.
Yeah.
We have such a legacy market, though. Stuff like this, we gotta get those people protected, especially since we've legalized now. So,
yeah, I think it's such an interesting lawsuit that really goes to look at like, how is our industry set up? Who is it set to benefit? Yeah. What does decriminalization and legalization actually look like in Minnesota? Is it having farmers markets where as long as you're never growing more than 4 plants and flower, you're allowed to sell what you grow? Under this lawsuit, maybe. Under current rules today, unfortunately, no. It would be interesting to see what a state looks like where you can grow at home, and as long as you're not growing more than your allotted amount, what you do with it is sort of your own concern.
As long as you report it.
I mean, I would love to see farmers markets. I think that's a brilliant idea. I mean, some of us has talked about doing that or having that. So people should be. I mean, people are selling it anyway, right? Yeah. Where do you think people are getting their flower now before March 1st? From the legacy market.
The special flower spot, right? Like in the woods, we just pick it?
Yeah. I mean, most people who are doing homegrown are not growing fight.
God gets me high.
This is God's cannabis.
Wait, the federal government doesn't send you guys joints in a metal tin anymore?
This isn't Canada.
Yeah, I get 8 joints a month.
Oh, darn.
Government cannabis, just like government cheese.
Oh. Imagine the terps. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, super excited to watch
Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah. So definitely people should follow that. We'll put a link to the complaint itself in the show notes. So if you're interested in reading their full argument, definitely go through and check that out. It's really not super long. It's only, I think, like 12 pages long. Yeah. But definitely recommend that people check it out. It's pretty interesting to read through and say, hey, before, yeah, maybe these rules applied, but today, I don't know. We got to decide.
Can I make a guess what's going to happen?
Well, I'm sure, yeah.
I got to now that I said
He's got to.
Yeah.
The judges are going to be like, okay, you guys want to grow and you want to sell, right? Mm-hmm. By the time this goes through, they're just going to go get a micro license.
Unlimited micro licenses.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. And that was thrown my way a lot with the caregiver program too, was why do you need to grow for more than 1 patient? If you want to grow for 2 patients, get a micro license. I was like, but I don't want a micro license to grow for my elderly parents.
Yeah, I'm saying a lot of people may not want
to
write it off
with rescheduling though. Why not? Why not want to?
I don't got time
everything,
to throw into it.
Everything you do in cannabis soon will be.
I wish.
You will be able to write it off, guys. Look out for that.
That's true. 280.
We're gonna get rescheduled in October, I hope. Come on, Biden, do your thing. And
come on, bad boy Biden, do your thing.
Bad boy Biden.
Schedule 3, huh?
Yeah, I'm not. the happiest about that myself. But
It should be
this is not my
descheduled.
podcast.
I mean, they don't even have alcohol or tobacco on the drug schedule at all. Like, that's hella suspect.
Super sus.
Well, that's what we were talking about on the podcast last week. We're like looking at the other drugs that are Schedule 3, like, all right, like full strength Tylenol. Is that like a good analogy to cannabis in our world today?
No.
You could die from
Anabolic
too much of that,
steroids.
though.
Yeah.
You can
Absolutely
die from
can.
too much cannabis.
Ketamine? But no.
To each their own with the ketamine argument. To each their own.
You can get that in the mail now.
To each their own
Yeah.
with the ketamine argument.
All right. Should we move on to our next news story?
Yes.
Guys, so our next
goes
news
on.
story
Trip it
is like a total callback to some previous episodes. If people go back way to episode 6, we talked about when this arrest first happened, right around August 1st of last year. On episode 12, we talked about maybe the potential legal, we don't really know if an arrest and charge can happen.
Sticky wickets.
Yeah, and now here, episode 33, we're back talking about our friend Todd Thompson. So just as a quick review for people, Todd Thompson was selling cannabis out of his Asim tobacco and pipe shop on August 1st of last year on native land.
I guess not just NativeCare.
No,
Native
not-
and Todd made sales.
Todd.
was ready.
Todd
Todd
made.
his flowers, thank you.
He had a couple pounds.
Literally.
Yeah, Todd was the one giving the flower.
Yeah. So Todd have a couple.
Believes in Article 13, Section 7.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Todd.
I'm sorry.
Todd. So Todd had a couple pounds of cannabis, about a pound of concentrate that he was openly selling to people. The police came in and seized it and said, "Hey, man, you can't do that. That's not actually allowed here in Minnesota." We talked about how, is this charge allowed in Minnesota under native relation laws?
Wait, if it's in
Question.
White Earth, it's technically in another country.
And so that's what we're
That's where the
talking about
problem
here
lies.
today. So now he has officially been charged with a felony charge. So maximum sentence of 5 years in prison or a $10,000 fine just for cannabis. Welcome to legalization, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter.
said.
Yeah.
But in essence, what's going to happen here is they're going to have to determine whether this applies as a criminal case or a civil case. And I know most people are listening to that and saying, well, Tanner, he was just charged with a felony. That makes it a criminal case. But let's really sort of break this down because I think it's sort of interesting. So there was a Supreme Court case federally, not in Minnesota, back in 1987 that said if there was laws to prohibit an activity but not outright ban it, then it falls under regulation, which is a civil offense. Now, here in Minnesota, are there rules that allow for the sale of cannabis? Yeah, there are. So should this crime for illegally selling cannabis on native lands...
Not yet. Not sales. Not sales. There are no rules around sales.
No
I
rules
mean,
around
prohibition is the problem, not cannabis.
It's just
That's
the
what
rules
we
are
always
like-
been
Legal.
saying.
I guess a licensed business is the only one who can sell.
Yeah, but so I guess is that provision of the House File 100 from last year in effect? Well, it's not been implemented, but is it statute in Minnesota?
Is it a big
I'm just-
difference if it's because it's at a tobacco store? Does that make a big difference?
No, in essence,
Okay.
the difference is basically, so he was illegally selling cannabis. Is there ways to legally sell cannabis in Minnesota? Yeah, there are. NativeCare was showing that day.
Yeah.
So should this apply as a criminal offense or should it apply as a civil offense, in which case Minnesota doesn't have jurisdiction? Well, almost certainly, this is also going to go to Supreme Court to decide
Yes, it will.
because
Just how it's going to be.
just
Because if they charge it civilly, they just can't.
if it
they're not
charged
doing
civilly, they
anything.
don't have
Yeah,
authority.
they just can't do anything.
Yeah.
So Jason Hastings, I think, needs to be named, is doing this so he can have jurisdiction and so he can
So that's sort of what we're trying to
prosecute
figure
cannabis.
out here. In essence, the Menominee, the Menominee interim county attorney says
interim.
we have jurisdiction here.
Interims.
You're trying to ruin a guy's life for a job you don't even have secured. I want you to know that.
It's
That
called-
is
it's
so
called
annoying
virtual
to me.
signaling.
That is so annoying to
Seems
me.
to be the theme.
Goodness
interims.
sakes.
I was in Yellow
Free
Medicine
Todd,
County
bro.
the other
Like,
day.
this is annoying.
Todd.
Free Todd. Yeah, so I think we've
is
talked about this
annoying.
on enough podcasts in the past that I think it's fair to say this probably, if it were to go to Supreme Court, would be said this is criminal. But I think at the end of the day, Should we be putting someone in prison for 5 years and facing a $10,000 fine for selling cannabis out of their shop?
Hell no. I mean, did he? Maybe he thought he could legally do it.
He literally did. Like, he was on native land on the first day of legalization. And he was
Exactly.
like,
It's like
thought I could do this. And it's just like charging him at all instead of being like, you can't do this. Like, Menominee County is spending what is going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars to prosecute this man for something that is legal in the state. Like, if you live in this county, like, be for real. Call your county attorney, interim county attorney. It's not his job. And tell him to drop charges or
well, someone's got to be made the example.
It's wrong, dude.
This is the. This is
so bad.
These are the last grips of the drug warriors.
Yeah.
Correct.
And it goes to something I've said this whole time. It's like, it is individuals making these decisions. Like, this is not how the county feels. This is how Jason Hastings feels. And it's like, no one cares that this guy was selling weed. Like, no,
he didn't hurt anybody. He didn't
I
assault anyone.
I promise you, the people who bought it knew exactly what it was.
And enjoyed themselves on August 1st and probably had a great time.
Well, and let's be real. If every single person selling cannabis today was in prison for 5 years, we wouldn't have the prison infrastructure to support that. Like, we need to move past this mindset of, like, should we be incarcerating people for selling cannabis? No.
It's like, it's my
We
last
shouldn't be
chance.
incarcerating people for most things that they're locked up for. I mean, this is a system that likes to criminalize poverty and mental illness and drugs a lot. And that shit is not just most of the time.
Yeah. I think that's such a great point for us to go out on a short break. When we get back, we're going to be digging into some of the news here at the legislature. And guys, we're going to be doing a mock conference committee. Oh, yeah. So stick around. We'll be right back.
I'm going to be the prohibitionist.
And we're back. So we had a lot of news come out of the legislature this week that we're going to be digging deep into, and then a little bit later, our mock conference committee. But first, guys, I got a quick update on Senate File 4699, the health omnibus bill that we talked about now maybe 2 episodes ago, last episode ago. It's been that bill that's really sort of been hanging over as we've got the cannabis bill, and then we've got this other one.
It's lingering.
Yeah, and this other one had provisions in it, such as not allowing fonts any larger than 6 point for anything describing like a fruity or a food-themed flavor. Thankfully, the language has been updated.
Yes.
So, in essence, the language does not allow for any artificial or synthetic flavoring, not including naturally occurring terpenes.
Wonderful.
So, in essence, if terpenes come from a botanical or cannabis-derived source, then they can be added to this without having to worry about people saying, hey, you're adding things that make it taste like whatever. Yeah. This is how cannabis tastes. These are the terpenes that we're adding. Definitely, I think, sort of language that we're a lot more comfortable with here.
Yeah, this was the landmine.
Yeah, this is sneaky.
Hidden in this session, and I'm really glad the lawmakers figured it out, talked to whoever they had to talk to, and got to a place that everyone's comfortable with this language, because that would have been a very funny way to start our cannabis industry.
Yeah.
Very stupid.
Very
Really
tiny
stupid.
blueberry kush across our packaging would be silly.
It was frustrating for the patients I work with because they were like, hold on, what about this? So, like, if I like super lemon haze, that works best for my issues. I'm not going to be able to get this. And I was just like, let me figure this out for you.
You just won't be sure.
Yeah, you won't be sure. It's going to be renamed. It's going to be called like Minnesota Lemon Nice or something like that.
And it's like,
long live the terps.
the naming. I think talking to legislators and, well, because I outed myself, but letting them know that the names are part of like the
Genetics,
like the
and
actual
strains.
like it's the terminology is part of this thing's lineage and how it's like scientifically identified. It's not just because it sounds cool.
Yeah. No.
Which it's both. It's always both. That's science. Like it has to sound cool and it needs to be, practical.
Science is cool.
Yeah.
Terpenes are great.
Long live the terps.
Long live the terps.
Should have worn my Save the Terps.
I know.
Orbita hat.
We'll just Photoshop it in on top.
No.
Perfect. Well, so let's talk about the other cannabis bill that really is, I think, the main one that we're going to be talking about today.
The big
4757.
4757.
Yeah. So passed the Senate, as you heard on our episode last week. In fact, we had some fun where we were recording last Friday. We went to go check on the break, and it's like, oh, the bill just passed. Like, we get to come in the studio and say, hey, we get to talk about this now, which never happens. It always happens like the next day. So glad we were able to talk about that. We've now got that conference committee appointed. So in the House, we've got Representative Stevenson, Hansen, Kozłowski, Fraser, and West.
Kozłowski.
Thank you. Oh, I always get the names wrong. John, do you want to do the names for the senators?
Senators, we got Port, France,
Mayor Quaid.
May Quaid,
thank
and
you.
last but not least, Jean. There we go.
Yeah.
Jay Sean.
Oh, yeah. So really excited to have those people get together. I think, you can tell a lot about the direction of the bill based on who gets put on that committee. Oh, yeah. And we've got some people on the committee that I'm really excited to have them be part of those discussions, helping us to figure out what does this bill look like. Yeah. Shout out to the conference committee.
Yeah, really good group. I personally love this group.
Oh, yeah. And
I will second that.
I love
Huge
this
fan
group of conference.
this conference.
You guys are the best.
Huge fan of this conference.
The best.
Oh, yeah.
They might be the 10 hardest workers.
I believe so at the end of the session.
Minnesota. Yeah, honestly, if they get this through with all the
changes
happening in the Senate.
Oh, yeah.
Give them a round of applause.
And their flowers.
Well, guys, so when I was in high school, I got to do some pretty fun activities that definitely did not get me bullied. I called Model UN. Did you guys ever hear about that?
Great activity.
Yeah, I was Palestine back in the day. It was definitely a really cool experience. Yeah.
I'm sure Model UN was so fun as Palestine.
Yeah, they were really kind to me.
There was a UN resolution today that would say
I did see that
Palestine qualifies for statehood, but it is just, signaling.
Good old UN.
Good old UN doing stuff.
Well, just like a bunch of high schoolers sitting in a hotel room talking as if they were members of the UN, we today are going to be having a mock conference committee.
Oh, I didn't bring my tie.
Oh, John, well, thankfully someone
came prepared.
Sir, I brought my Senate jacket everywhere I go. Thank you.
We are
the green Senate jacket.
Ready.
You're looking legislative.
Thank you. I just retired as a lobbyist this week.
Well, so
next session.
In front of all of you is a big stack of papers. This is your side-by-side. So if anyone is interested in how the sausage gets made, this is a version of the whole House version and the whole Senate version side-by-side with the differences highlighted. Now you can go in
between the two
bills,
companion bills.
Yeah.
And that would be HF 4757 and SF 40 or SF.
So this is the weird part is actually they totally abandoned the Senate version, took on the House version, and then made a bunch of changes to it.
Yeah, I was going to say, they did it really weird where we could have had them just concur the House version and no conference committee. That was like what I thought was going to happen too. But they decided to go to conference.
Yeah. And some pretty interesting changes that we're going to be talking about today because, like you said, the bill's language up until a certain point was literally the exact same. Yeah. So these are all changes that have been adopted either by the House on the floor or by the Senate in committee or on the floor that we're going to be sort of digging into today. So in essence, you guys are all members of the conference committee, and we're going to go through and decide, do we like the House version or the Senate's version? Now, just like some general rules, because who doesn't love their rules? Conference committees can't technically come up with any new provisions. So even if we don't love the language in both of the versions, we're sort of having to pick what is the best version here. We can create like a compromise idea, but if it doesn't come originally from the House or the Senate version, it's ruled essentially not germane, wouldn't be allowed in the conference committee report. It would have to go back through all of these conferences and all this nonsense. So today we're going to be deciding which version do we like best. Let's jump in. So we're going to be talking through sort of in order. So for those playing along at home, we're going to be starting on page 16. A really interesting provision looking at who is a qualified medical patient here in Minnesota. Now, our program currently in Minnesota just allows for a list of here are the qualified conditions. If you have other things that cannabis might help, well, you got to petition the office to approve it. However, The House approved a provision that would allow any medical patient that has a condition that is approved by their patients or by their healthcare provider. So if their healthcare provider says your life could be improved or your medical condition could be treated by cannabis, you are a medical patient. The Senate's version does not include that. What are our thoughts?
Yeah, the Senate version just simply says like if it's approved by the office. So I would say I would rather my doctor, approve those kind of things than the Office of Cannabis Management. Like, no shade, but they're a regulatory body, not my personal physician.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And I was actually listening in on the committee when the House file talking about this change was actually brought up. And I am all for it as a person who's tried to get on Minnesota's medical program, had to go to another state to get on a state program. And in that state, Michigan, that was what it was. I talked to the doctor. It was a 12-minute appointment. And I was on the cannabis program where I've been trying since, I think, 2011 to actually talk to my doctors like, hey, I use cannabis. And it was still such a stigma here in Minnesota at the time. So
Yeah, absolutely. Marcus, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I don't think the people should need the officer's opinion or their doctor's opinion, like if they want to use cannabis for their health. But I guess if you're going through a medical company, the doctor is going to know more than the office.
agreed.
Yeah, totally.
About your personal condition, because everybody's different. The office could have a list of conditions, but not even think about certain conditions.
This is like a switch that they are bound to make in 3 to 5 years if it is just by the office. So like let's skip all that.
Just do it now.
Get it, patient, doctor, make your decision.
House version.
So as the prohibitionist on the
outside.
panel, which I'm gonna hate doing, but one argument that we've heard is that we could see doctors approving cannabis for anything. I mean, we wouldn't want
Radical.
cannabis just like approved for
It works for everything.
anxiety or depression or sleep, right?
Right?
I mean, they knew in the 1800s and in the 1970s that cannabis it can treat like over 200 different conditions.
Yeah, I learned they put it in the U.S.
Pharmacopoeia.
Yeah, in like 1840, 1850.
Absolutely.
And
Yes,
they took
they
it out
did.
right before Prohibition, which is insane.
Convenient.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you
It's
guys
a
convinced me.
versatile healing plant.
There's a cannabinoid for every condition.
So we would include the house version in this.
House version
Our
wins.
bodies have an endocannabinoid system.
Yeah, where's our gavels?
I need a gavel, man.
Talking out of order.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. I like that one better. All right, moving on. So now on page 37, so just the next page for you guys, but for those following along at home, flip to page 37. And we're going to be looking at what qualifies as a low-potency hemp edible. Now, here in Minnesota today, it allows for 5 milligrams of THC, 25 milligrams of CBD, and then when the rules go into effect, when the rules go into effect, 25 milligrams of CBD, 25 milligrams of CBG, and 0.5 milligrams of all other cannabinoids. Now, the House version did include language that expanded that to include CBN and also CBC. Still caps all other cannabinoids at 0.5% milligrams, allowing perhaps for like full spectrum type, but not necessarily all cannabinoids being included. So we have to decide, do we like the House versions that expands what cannabinoids are allowed in low potency edibles, or do we like the Senate version that sort of keeps it the way it is today?
House version. I mean, stop discriminating against some of the other cannabinoids
Agreed.
Yeah, I'll
that are
third
not
that.
just so mainstream yet.
I'll say house version is better because it's something, but it's
Yeah.
also like not even quite there yet with like what we know about cannabinoids and what's psychoactive and what isn't. I think, it's a good start.
I mean, the average person, if they really want to have an effective dose of CBD, is going to need hundreds of milligrams. So, like this 5 milligrams, 25 milligram, like that's arbitrary as hell.
It is. And I
It's
work a
not
lot.
science.
It's correct. And I work a lot with CBN, and like the 0.5 was insulting to me
Terrible.
because that's one of the biggest cannabinoids I use for people who are on pain pills or opioids. Is I recommend they try CBN because it can mimic that. It has that healing type of properties. It helps with sleep aids, things like that. So last year I was really frustrated with HF 100 when they took CBN out when that was one of the cannabinoids a lot of Minnesota companies was utilizing already last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we have some really good products on the market in Minnesota with CBN in them. So I'm glad they bumped that back up. Kind of like Marcus said, though, quit discriminating against the cannabinoids. I mean, I say that being someone who does not like the Delta 8s and the HHOs and things like that. But like, I mean, the CBCs, the CBGs, the CBNs, the things that have shown to have some health benefits, let them be. Yeah. Let them live.
Yeah, could not agree more. Absolutely. All right, so we're going to go with the House version and hope that we get an expanded bill
2 for the House
in the future. Good old House. All right, moving on now to page number 48. Now, we talked about perhaps there being other cannabinoids that people might want to be using in their low-potency hemp edible products. Under the law as it is today, that requires a statute change. Now, actually, our friend Jess Hansen introduced this component that would allow them to, the office itself, to designate other cannabinoids to be used in low-potency edible products and will allow them to figure out what that appropriate dose would be. So it wouldn't require legislative change, actually requiring all lawmakers in the House and Senate and the governor to get on the same page, but instead just our regulators. The Senate's version includes none of that language.
And the House is killing this.
Yeah. Big shout out Jess Hansen for this language.
Rep. Hansen's a good representative.
Maybe
she
the
does the
best.
job. She does the job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Shout out to Representative Hansen.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is such like a no-brainer inclusion. In what other world do we require a statutory change for like a minor regulatory, like, oh yeah, you can also include this cannabinoid. Like we've done research, we found that this one also helps. Here you go.
Especially, again, going back to rescheduling, we're going to have so much state-funded research into cannabinoids. We're going to probably be finding new ones every year, and we wouldn't want to be like, limiting our industry to
There's
like
over
the ones
113.
Wow, guys, we're flying through. This is like the fastest mock conference committee we've ever done.
Shout out the Minnesota State House then.
All right, you guys all think the House
And
version
Senate.
is just like so much better?
I mean,
so far.
All right, well, here we go. Let's check out the next version.
they're like 90% the same thing.
They are like 90% the same thing.
Yeah.
But now let's talk a little bit about some protections for medical patients. So under laws today, there's not actually possession allowances for med patients above personal cannabis possession. So you can have 2 ounces in public. Previously, med patients could have a 90-day supply on their person, whatever their doctor said that was. Yeah, exactly.
What does that mean?
But now this would say, in essence, if this person has medical cannabis, that is, it has labels on them that says this is medical cannabis for them, that does not apply for possession limits, either at home or in public. So if this person goes to the store and says, hey, the best way for me to get my medical cannabis is to buy a pound of cannabis. That's just sort of the best system for me. My doctor says this is how I need to be using it. This would allow a med patient to do that. The House version actually includes no language around that.
So this is the Senate change, you're saying?
Yes, this is 51 and 52 is the page that we're at. So this whole highlighted section on
We
the...
didn't move along, you guys. We're behind Tanner.
Yeah, sorry. So this is where it sort of says that right on that bottom where it's underlined, it said the possession limits do not apply to persons enrolled in the medical program if the person's cannabis includes patient-specific labeling. Now, it is sort of unfortunate. It does need to be cannabis purchased through a legally regulated medical cannabis source. So like if you had a caregiver growing for you, this wouldn't necessarily apply for you because you don't have a sticker that you can be attaching that applies under those rules. As of right now,
Can't you kind of do it the way liquor stores do with the THC drinks right now? They just put a little sticker that says this product does not solve any sort of medical, but like do it in not the same type of sticker, but just like a sticker that's like medical.
So the
products
provisions on what is on there
number
are really specific. It would have to include also what your dosage is as approved by your doctor.
So they need like a pharmacy, like.
Yeah, there's like a specific provisions to like if you go and look at sections 342.51, which we don't have printed off. I apologize, guys.
Just pretend.
But those are the rules in a. There we go. Thanks for nodding. Those are the rules in essence that require people to have these stickers on any medical cannabis product, and would say that this possession limit raise only applies to those bought through a regulated method, which maybe 10 years from now might not be a huge issue, but as of right now, I would say is a pretty
Caregivers
big
get
deal.
their stuff together really fast, and listen to us perhaps, and see that like this is a good way to get their patients to have their extended limit that they're legally allowed to.
Well, I kind of fell underneath this in Michigan as a med patient. Now if I go and I buy bulk from a med shop, if I take advantage of one of their like 4 for 100 concentrate deals, 4 grams for 100, whatever it may be, They print off a sticker with my full name on it. Kayla Denise Fearing. Now you guys all know my name. Right across.
We'll bleep it.
Yeah, I don't even care. Right across on my product, where I've actually had friends kind of laugh when they've seen like my packaging in my living room, like, oh, they put your full name on blast. I'm like, they do, because then if I was pulled over, if I was stopped in any way, shape, or form, I could say, hey, it's all registered to me. Like, I bought this myself. So this is interesting. I'm not mad at it. I'm kind of neutral on this.
All right.
I'm a little neutral on it personally, because it didn't really do much for me as a patient.
Yeah.
But I never ran into the situation either where I would hope that our, say, law enforcement, however this would protect someone, is getting more lenient towards cannabis rather than like, we're going to crack down and make sure your name is labeled on every single product.
And that's where I feel like these
Yeah.
protections are another like start.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, you can have more because you're medical, but you need the sticker. So it's going to be like, yeah, you can have more, but it needs to be in like this kind of bag.
Yes.
And hopefully it keeps going, because
I'm down to play the guardrail game if we have to play the guardrail game, because I feel like anyone who's been in the legacy market knows the guardrail game and how to play it per se.
Absolutely. Well, and I think this is sort of the reason that I put
what
those.
the guardrail game means.
it's like how Minnesota is so careful.
Yeah, you
with
try to
every
find
step.
little.
Like, they need all the protections.
You can't have a dispensary 100 feet by a daycare because you don't want to expose children, but you can have it 100 feet next to an adult daycare or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
that's
Like
not an
they
example.
put in all these little rules. It's like pointless guardrails.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just a bunch of arbitrary bullshit.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's no better expressed that during a draft version of the bill, it didn't allow it within 100 feet of a church. And it's like,
That was the example I was going
Okay.
to originally use, which is like,
Okay.
adults go to church. Why can't there be a dispensary next to the church? My God smoked cannabis. I don't know about yours.
I get my weed from God.
You did say that. He did mention that earlier. God
You know
is
what?
his
I never
caregiver.
wanted to be a medical patient. No offense to medical patients, but yeah,
I feel you,
I don't want
Marcus.
to jump through a bunch of hoops and fill out a bunch of forms.
for sure. And yeah.
That was a huge difference for me being
No
a Minnesotan
offense.
using a different state's medical program, was seeing the difference between the two programs. Like I switched healthcare systems from Alina to Health Partners because Alina would not hear me out on cannabis. I go to Michigan and they're like 12 minutes on a Zoom call. They're like, here's your med card, go shopping. So it's
I
just two
respect it,
differences.
but yeah, fuck. I just want to buy.
We should do an episode sometime because I'm a med patient here in Minnesota, and we could talk about
We
sort of the
should.
differences between our programs and how I haven't bought medical cannabis through our program since the day I enrolled. Because
And I still drive 6 hours too
yeah,
and smoke it
should
all
also.
in Michigan.
all
And then
in
come
Michigan.
home.
Yeah, exactly.
It'd be fun to just compare our
That's so
set
funny.
rules after this year to Michigan, Illinois. And just
Yes.
like
For sure.
see where we are.
Future episode of Northern Lights.
Yes.
But before we can get there, we got to decide: do we want the House version, which includes no protections for patients, or the Senate version that includes limited protections for patients?
You know, I'm going to give Senate. I'm going to give Senate the vote on this one personally.
All right.
I think Senate gets this one.
Yeah.
I echo that.
There we go. I think not far enough, but at least
It's the worst gavel ever.
good step.
Representative, could you please stop being so violent with the gavel?
So you're gonna break the gavel.
NativeCare, we may need a new mug after this.
It's a good cap. All right. Well, so now let's talk a little bit about some of the licenses. Now, we've talked a lot about what pre-approval looks like here in our potentially would look like here in our med program. We're not going to spend a ton of time talking about like the actual rules of what pre-approval would look like, but I do want to spend a minute looking at what the numbers around pre-approved licenses should look like. So if we all flip to page 57, you'll notice that we have the House laying out how many licenses we should have of each type. You guys can also look at your beautiful summary here that makes it a little bit clearer to see. But in essence, we have the House saying we should have, in pre-approval, 100 micro licenses, 25 meso licenses, 13 cultivator licenses, 6 manufacturer licenses, 50 retailer licenses, 20 wholesaler licenses, 20 transporter licenses, 50 testing licenses, and 10 delivery licenses. Now that's sort of our base. So we're starting there. That's what House File 4757 in the House says. The Senate did make a couple changes, and you can see them highlighted. The biggest change is that they require a certain number of these pre-approval licenses to go to businesses that say they will service the medical community. So of the 100 micro licenses, at least 20 of them have to go to businesses that plan to get a medical retail endorsement. It's not just selling medical cannabis, but they plan to also sell medical cannabis. They did lower the number of meso down to 15 instead of 25, the number of cultivators down to 11 instead of 13, testing facilities down 25 instead of 50. And then they also put in pre-approval for an event organizer, which I think is sort of interesting because that's like supposed to be a temporary license. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But in essence, these are sort of the numbers that we're looking at. The questions that we have to consider are A, do we like the House or the Senate's number better? And B, do we like the concept of setting aside some of these pre-approval licenses, specifically for people that plan to service not just the adult use market, but also the medical market? Go.
So to the second question, I do like putting some for med because we have combo licenses, like our meso license, you can do both. But, I mean, the numbers are just, they're placeholders, they're numbers. And it's like, I would just rather start on the higher end, I guess, and just let as many people who do qualify get in here because that's like the best. If we're going to incubate it, we might as well incubate it to its capacity instead of, I don't know why the Senate decided to limit it, but I would also want event organizer with the House limits, with the House numbers, because, if I can throw events this summer.
But what if all the event organizers are like in the metro area? What about the rest of the state? I mean, all of these numbers are arbitrary. I know you can't have 1,000, license types for each type of license, but for each of the license types, but
I know I'm really shoehorning you guys to this one because I'm not asking you to decide, do you like the pre-approval? Do you like the caps on pre-approval? I'm asking you
the number.
Which numbers do you think are
House
best? Because I think
House has more.
Yeah, the House does allow for more. The Senate caps a little bit, but has that earmark for med.
Yeah.
We can vote to include.
We can take
blend the
med.
language.
I mean, all the cannabis is the same.
All the cannabis is the same. Thank you.
You don't have to buy it from a medical shop to get the same product. Like
It is literally the same, just a different license. Maddening. And that's kind of why I'm being quiet over here on this one, because the license topic is a tough topic.
It's a tough one.
It's so tough for me from working in a state and working at a shop that had both licenses, and then working for one store that dropped their medical license, and then one that was fighting for a medical license after they went rec. I think the more numbers, the better. These are rookie numbers to me.
Yeah.
But this is just pre-approval. This is not going to be the total
pre-approval.
number of
For
licenses.
sure.
And
We're going to get to that.
I feel like so many people have been involved, though, already, where this pre-approval is going to freak a lot of business owners out that are going for that license.
There.
It's getting competitive.
It's getting
there's going to be some people who are really vexed about not getting one. And they might be well capitalized and prepared, otherwise.
But they don't qualify for the pre-approval.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's like, damn.
Yep.
So, guys, sort of like
I'd
how
be mad
lawmakers
as
might
hell.
be on a committee and sort of be in like the uncomfortable position of, I don't like this, but this is the best that I have in front of me.
I understand that.
We're going with the House's number, but maybe we like the idea of earmarking some for people that plan to participate in the med market. Is that sort of our in-between we're going with?
Yeah.
I do like that med incentive.
And then I
I like
and
that
I
med
like
incentive.
adding event organizer because
Yes.
that legalizes everything we're going to do this fall.
And like Martha said, too, we do need people out in the outskirts, too. We don't just need a bunch of events in the metro.
In the metro.
So I'm hoping that there are people out in the corners of the state that want to apply for that, too, because, that's going to be a tough one, too.
Because I guess we'll see the full rules for event organizer. But I
Yeah.
feel like this is cool.
Oh, well,
This is cool. Let's just say that.
we're going to take a
not-
short
don't be too
break
loud.
here, and then we're going to come on back and talk about a couple other provisions here. We'll be right back. All right, and we're back. So, guys, we're still in conference committee here. We got a couple other provisions to look at. Jumping right along to not at all a controversial one, we're looking at the definition of a social equity applicant here in Minnesota. Now, the House version does make a couple changes to who's included as a social equity applicant, but in general sort of keeps it the same. It expands it to all military veterans, not just those that were discharged for cannabis. It defines what an emerging farmer is, but in essence, it sort of keeps the rules the same as they were under the last bill. The Senate's version had an added provision in it, in that any, quote, business that is a woman who operates a women-owned business, as defined in economic statutes, is a social equity applicant. Do we feel as though women-operated businesses should qualify as social equity applicants here in Minnesota? Again, not at all controversial. Who wants to take that one first?
I'm biased as a woman that I think yes.
There we go. So we got one yes.
This one is super interesting because I think it forces a discussion of like, what is social equity in this bill and what are the outcomes we want from social equity? Because like with this change, we're essentially saying half of Minnesota qualify as social equity applicants.
That's fair.
Yeah. So I'm going to play the role of not the right place or time. I'm not saying that that's my actual opinion, but I want to at least make this argument and we can sort of talk about this idea, because this isn't something that we're like, hey, let's go ahead and bash women-owned businesses. No. Not at all what we're trying to do here, but we do want to have a discussion that people in this conference committee they'll have to have over the next couple of days.
Correct.
So, John, I think the point that you made is really prudent. What do we want to accomplish with social equity in this bill? I think when we went into it back in House File 600, way, way long ago, the idea of social equity was, let's take the people that were harmed by the war on drugs and give them this entry route either to the industry or to additional funding that could potentially repair some of those harms. I think when we look at the statistics around who was harmed around cannabis prohibition, were women harmed? Absolutely. I think that's undoubtedly true. Were women harmed statistically more than other populations that were not included in this provision? For example, BIPOC individuals do not qualify as social equity applicants, even though statistically speaking, much higher arrest rates. People that no.
Wow, okay.
People that are
that's something I missed.
And a lot of white
As a
people
Caucasian,
think
that's
that
something I missed.
Yeah, people that are Native American who proportionally are their cars are searched much higher than Caucasian individuals throughout the entire cities when when pulled over for cannabis crimes, not included as social equity applicants. So again, I'm not saying that women shouldn't be included as social equity applicants. I do think we need to give women a route to establish businesses. I think when we look at the people that last time around, we said this is going to face a constitutional challenge, and then opted to say we can't have that happen, to now say, no, we'll make that fight for women. When statistically speaking, not that women weren't harmed by the war on drugs, but were they as harmed as, for example,
flip-flop
BIPOC male?
With new information,
I'll
I take
play
my
devil's
first answer
advocate
back.
on that, saying that like we've all seen like the illicit legacy market. Mm-hmm. It is so hard for a woman to break through.
Heck yeah.
So hard for a woman to break through.
Absolutely.
Do we want the same thing in our legal adult use market?
No.
Question.
Yeah.
And that's where like this could easily
totally.
Yeah, where it's like one is like, were these the original people we're thinking of when we made the provision, when we defined social equity? And then it's like also about like women are treated harshly in business, regardless of the business. And then in cannabis, I've seen like a lot of the weird like misogyny in weed.
Absolutely.
It's hard to be a woman in weed.
It's tough out here.
Yeah, I think
going
that's
back
more
2 decades, it was potentially like unsafe to be a woman in the industry in certain parts of our country. Like, I think saying women were not harmed by cannabis prohibition is
when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Like,
no.
like it is
The 2000s.
John, you're getting old. That was two decades. No, just kidding. Just kidding. No, Kayla, I don't think you at all have to take back what you said, because I think when we look at who should be included, I think if we were to sit down and say, should women be given priority to entry in our industry, we all would say, yeah, let's find a way to get them into the industry. Yeah. I think when we're making the value judgment of women, yes, BIPOC individuals, no.
See, and that's the part I missed.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I'm putting it in
with that a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't know that wasn't in statute.
It's like, if we're making that constitutional argument, it's like we can't try to backdoor in half the population.
No.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm thinking right now, John. I'm literally thinking that as well. Like, you can't just...
Well, like I said, like, we do need way more
Yeah.
female representation in cannabis.
Absolutely,
Look
that
at
part.
our panel.
Yeah.
But like,
Hey, I'm a guest judge or a guest panelist.
We're happy to have you here. We invited you on just to bash women, so we're
but
glad
like
that
you
you're
said,
here.
like,
No, no, no.
wrong
I'm the one
place,
for
wrong
it.
time. It's not for a conference committee to do.
Yeah.
vote
I agree with
outside.
that, actually. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, no.
So I think, should we have funding available for women who want to start cannabis businesses?
Hell
Heck yeah,
yeah.
we should. Should we offer training and business support for women that want to
Hell
enter?
yeah.
Absolutely. Should we even like promote women in the industry? Maybe offering like, this product is created by a women-owned brand and we should feature that? Absolutely. Should they be social equity applicants? Oh boy, I'm glad I'm not on that conference committee.
Yeah, same.
All right. Well, guys, I think we navigated that one well.
Thanks
Well,
for
I just gotta
educating me.
say, like, a lot of times I encounter white people and they think that I'm automatically would be considered a social equity
Same,
applicant.
every
they
time.
make that assumption.
Every time.
And I'm like, not necessarily.
And
I mean, did they do a report on my zip code? It might not qualify. I'm
Yeah.
not a veteran.
Well, and I think what we should
I've
say
never
is,
been arrested.
women do qualify as social equity applicants if they're a veteran, or if they're an emerging farmer, or if they live in a community impacted by the war on drugs. They are a social equity applicant, regardless of their sex.
i.e., if you're a social equity.
it rubs me the wrong way on this, though, because our politicians themselves, when they were bringing up social equity, they kept using people of color as their examples. None of them brought up women. Nobody said the group of women, the subculture of women have been hurt on the war of drugs. It was all people of color. So that's where I wasn't aware 100% because I've been a little sidetracked on caregiver stuff.
You would think
That-
it's in the bill.
I thought it was in the bill.
You would
Yeah.
think it's
So
in the bill.
for me as a woman, again, being biased on the answer, like, that's frustrating for me because now I feel like I'm being put up against the people of color when
Yeah.
I was
it's
never
like-
used as,
I
an
wouldn't
example the
look
last
at
year
it
and a
you
half.
being put up against people of color, but I mean the
Well,
reality
they're making the
is
value jump.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the value of it. When they've been selling this to the politicians who are anti-cannabis, they've been like, think of the people of color, think of the people of color. And now you guys aren't included in this?
Yeah, I mean,
That's
the
so
whole thing was
frustrating
they
as
used
a
that
white girl.
argument about the racial disparities in arrests to say this is why we need to end
do
prohibition.
this. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
But
which
they
is
didn't
frustrating,
say
though.
this is how we're going to make it right
Yeah.
by
So,
like putting racial equity as at the forefront of legalization.
yeah. So I think we all can agree we need to be working more as a community, as a state, through
Yes.
legislation, through just like community action to make sure that women have a place in our industry here in the state. I think when we look at our conference committee report that we want to pass on to the full floor, do we want this provision included this year? I think I would vote no.
Yeah,
I'd agree with you on that.
I would reluctantly vote no too because I do understand that the cannabis industry women are underrepresented, you know, and I'm all about like the equity,
Yeah.
all across the
Me too.
spectrum.
Yeah.
So I would love to see overrepresentation of women in the industry, but yeah.
So I think what we can say here is this is a really good, like it comes from a really good place, a really good motivation of let's get women into our industry. Let's keep having this conversation and figure out what are some of the ways that we actually can give women an on-ramp to become part of this industry.
Yeah, how can you go around that social equity definition, like to within the OCM to prioritize women getting licenses and black people getting licenses?
Well, and like imagine
not
like a
only,
can train funded program that goes to like BIPOC colleges and goes to like women organizations at colleges to say, hey, you actually have a role in this industry and we can help you get there.
Help you jump in.
Such a
please.
no-brainer. I really, really hope something like
I mean,
that
the
pops up.
people looking at the licenses, they should have a culture within the OCM that like, yeah, I like this one.
All right. Well, let's move on to another
right reason.
not at all controversial one. You guys can see that we sort of put some of the bad ones for the end. So we're going to be talking about total license caps. Now, these are not caps from that pre-approval process. This is looking at after we've had that rolled out. What are some of these total caps that we should be having on our industry? Now, let's note that neither of the bills include caps for micro operators. Those likely will be uncapped here in Minnesota. We're waiting for the final rules, but it's looking like as of right now, we're going to have a lot of micro businesses, which I think is really incredible as an industry. Where the caps are put in are around cultivators, manufacturers, retail, and meso businesses. And again, unfortunately, we're not deciding whether we like the idea of caps. I don't. We're not deciding whether we like the idea of caps. Instead, we are just voting on which number do we like best. And again, sort of like with the social equity ones before, do we like the idea of some being set aside for med? So let's say cultivator 25, manufacturer 12, 100 retailers, and 50 meso businesses under social equity, and then those same numbers duplicated for all others. So essentially half of the licenses are going to be set aside for social equity applicants, the other half for everyone else. The Senate's bill is slightly different, where instead of 25 cultivators, it only allows for 19, and instead of 50 meso businesses, it only allows for 30. And of the retailers, 20% of them have to supply that medical market, and of the meso licenses of the 30, at least 6 of those have to do the medical license. Now, sort of again, we got to decide whose numbers do we like best, and do we like setting some aside for med?
House, because there's more. I don't think we need to set aside for med. People can be, it's all the same cannabis.
I say meso can always apply for a med endorsement as well.
Yeah, that was kind of the meso cliche there.
So it's interesting. This one's hard. It makes me want to muse for like a while about like it's one of the ones. There's many where it's just like this can go. What do we want to do is like what matters more than like these fucking numbers. Like the numbers are arbitrary. What do we want to see happen? I love the 1-to-1. Like if we want this industry to be equitable, let's give one social equity license for every other license.
I like that
Fucking
as well.
makes sense. It's like when it comes to the numbers, like I really don't care. The OCM can change them as they please. It's just like right now, what do we want to see? Wait, if these are, they can still change these numbers, right? They can raise that.
Unfortunately, the maxes would be put in statute.
Wow. So,
whoa.
Then we have to go with the house side just because like we don't want to have that fucking stupid shit happen where it's like June and we need more of a certain license, but it's like we're asking the governor for a special session for weed. It's like, would you want that, or do you want to just put someone in charge who can, not unilaterally, you can put triggers in there, like raise these caps and not have a maximum? What's the purpose of a maximum cap before you've started is what we need to be asking ourselves. But now that we have to pick numbers, let's go with the bigger numbers.
All right. So again, we're going with the house one for this?
Bigger numbers.
What happens if 80% of these licensees fail and like you only have like 20% of them performing well? The market will be underserved.
Mm-hmm.
It's underserved now with no seeds in the ground.
Yeah.
Because then it's just people taking up,
like,
or if they're not operational, like there's so much that we need to make a real big space.
So we all vote no caps, but in this version we vote House bill.
House bill.
There's not even going to be
they got
enough
the bigger
supply
numbers.
for a while.
All right, moving along, medical cannabis endorsements. We're just going to talk about this one briefly because it's sort of a minor change, but I think worth mentioning. In the House version, we're going to have cultivators, processors, and retailers all have to get a medical endorsement to be able to sell into that market. We all agree cannabis is cannabis. Medical cannabis is just adult use cannabis, but sold through a medical market. The Senate's version, I actually think is sort of unique, where the retailer themselves, if they want to be able to service a patient, be able to sell medical cannabis, they have to get that endorsement. But the processor, the cultivators, the cannabis itself is all just cannabis.
Yeah.
Some of it can just be sold as medical cannabis. Which version do we like better, regulating the entire market or just having sort of the one endorsement?
I like the one endorsement personally.
I like the one endorsement, yeah.
Again, I've experienced it, so I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the goals set up by OCM this year was to streamline our whole thing. Let's put that distinguishing factor at the end of the supply chain and not make like this guy get this license and like this license.
Absolutely.
Like before it's even noticeable or worth like while. Like no one knows until you put it in a medical shop where you put it. Depending on like how it's grown. Like
absolutely
just adding more paperwork.
It's making it convoluted.
Yeah.
The consumer don't care. They just want it.
You don't want to fill these out. You don't want to read these.
Exactly. Make everybody's job easier.
Yes, the OCM's not deciding. It's the legislature. They're like,
unfortunately. All right, well, we got a couple other provisions we want to look at, and I'm super happy to have you here for this next one. So the caregiver provision. You guys heard this talked about on a previous episode of Northern Lights. In fact, Kayla came on, talked about this provision. It was
Episode 23.
Yeah, absolutely.
Episode 23, baby. I remember it.
It was really cool being able to hear about what that model provision could potentially look like. Obviously, it was folded into this, and sort of like everything else, it was chewed apart, and this is sort of what we got
Yes, it was.
left over, but still very exciting to see caregivers potentially written into our bill. Now, the House version would allow a caregiver to grow up to 8 plants on behalf of a patient, and they could also grow their own 8 plants. So we could have a caregiver legally growing potentially up to 16 plants.
Correct.
Patients that have a caregiver would surrender their right to grow, so they would not be able to grow at home, but at least we would see potentially some med patients being able to work with caregivers to say, I'm not going to grow and I really need someone to.
Yep.
Can you work with me? The Senate's version didn't include that at all.
Nothing.
Kayla, what are your thoughts on this?
This is where I'm a retired lobbyist now. So I'm happy that we got it in HF 4757. That was a really cool move of Rep. Stevenson. Even, I mean, going back and forth with him, it was really cool that he put it in there for us so we have something to work with. 16 plants, I feel like that's better than 4 plants for someone who's growing for their medical needs. A little frustrated with the Senate. I actually had Senator Fa, who's on the conference committee, reach out to me and become a co-author on the Senate version of it kind of towards the end here. Fortunately, it didn't get a hearing, but didn't get an amendment either. So I'm really hoping that in the conference committee this past week and now this week, that they can actually put a few changes in there. Last week, I actually wrote a letter to the whole conference committee asking them to bump that 1 patient up to 3 patients still. So we'll see if they do that for me.
Incredible. I mean, guys, any thoughts that you have to add on that?
I would love to hear them.
You know, Kayla, I mean, I support what you say.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say same. You did kick ass this year introducing your bill,
Thank you.
getting it into this bill, and hopefully, like, it's. I see no reason, like, it not surviving does not,
Like, why?
not do anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's like, who's against this for why?
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
my feelings on it. Like, why are we against this? We're just
Why
trying to help
not?
people just get their medicine.
Yeah.
Why are you trying to control everything?
Plants. It's like,
Yeah.
isn't that the point?
And
Are we trying to grow plants here?
I think the only reason why it really didn't get a hearing in the Senate was because of all the Senate drama.
Hoopla.
The hoopla. Because even when I was talking to senators, like at the very last second of deadline for them, they were like, we approve this, we'll support it. So I think we did well, Minnesota. Thank you for everyone that helped me advocate for that.
Yeah, well, and like, let's give credit where credit is due. Yeah, shout out to everyone that helped with that. We need people
Rep.
helping.
Hansen.
But also, like, Kayla, shout out to you because we'll be able to look at that provision and say, like, hey, we know who did that. Yeah, a lot of people helped with that. We do not at all trying to minimize that, but like,
And Kayla's been at
that's you.
every event for the last 5 months, being like, guys, I need you to look at this bill. I need you to call your senator or your representative, please. And I need you to tell them you support it. Here's what it does. Like, you had the packets and everything
Yeah.
ready for people. Like, you did a really good job pushing this bill this year.
Tried the ferret bribes. The ferret bribes worked too.
Bribing, yeah.
that works for me.
I'll let you pet my ferret.
Hey,
I
we're
say it
proud
like
of
that too.
you and grateful for you.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you for your
Yeah,
service.
yeah.
And I was taught by people like Marcus and Chris Wright, who we were mentioned earlier, and my dad, all the grassroots advocates. So this one's for you guys too.
Yeah, you show up. Thank you, and you're so good.
I love it.
Yay.
Well, yeah, definitely hope that the conference committee improves that House version and includes that House version.
Yeah.
And updated because it's definitely something that's important here in Minnesota. All right, we just got a couple more. We've got 2 sort of quicker ones that I want to talk about, and then we got one that we're going to dive into a little bit more. So the next one, just sort of a simple thing. The House version doesn't include any, quote, additional children protections, but the Senate version includes something that bans images of cartoons, toys, robots, real or fake people, fake animals or creatures, or real animals or creatures, fruit or vegetables, except when they're used to describe the flavor. And you cannot use the term candy, candies, or candy with a K.
Boom. Hit my face on the microphone.
How do you guys feel about not being able to use cartoons, toys, robots, people, vegetables, animals, any of that?
Do they know who the adults of today are? We love cartoons. I still play
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon Go.
I do support banning images of fruits or veggies, though. That
I'm cool with that,
to the
too.
core.
I don't need an animated apple for my apple fritter strain, personally.
Hey, if I buy a box of apple pie, I don't want to see an apple on it.
But guys, so like, here's the example that I want to give.
Yeah.
Have we ever eaten Granny's pretzels before?
Delicious.
They have a fake person on the front.
And I love that, Granny.
I'm not relating a lot of this stuff to children.
Yeah.
Same.
Have you ever had their gummies before? They have an apple on the front.
There's
It's
an
ain't
apple,
eating
yeah.
that.
But it's not it's not like an apple with big, happy, bright eyes and like a big smile. It's just an apple.
Like no one in the can.
Actually, unfortunately,
Is
it
it?
does
Okay.
have Granny's face on
Granny,
the
why
apple.
do you do this
No,
to
I
me?
know. So we're sort of in this position where, like, do we feel like that product is appealing towards children? I mean, personally, for me, I don't. I think it's appealing to me, but
I guess my question is, do we have these rules for alcohol right now?
No, we don't.
yeah, I don't believe so.
I think we
That's
should
my
be
beef.
consistent because they're going to be like, oh, if you go home and your kid sees your gummies and they have like a banana on it, they're going to be like, ooh, yummy. But that's like the fault of the parents. I don't think we need to get
agree
regulatory
with that.
about this.
I have to say this. The people who come up with these type of ideas are the type of people that get mad at their kids for dancing. I was at that concert at Orchestra
he
Hall,
right.
New Orleans Jazz Orchestra with Irvin Mayfield Jr. And this woman saw a kid dancing in the seat, and she looked at him like he was committing the most heinous crime.
How dare you?
So I'm like, what type of people are this controlling?
And I mean, I was just at a liquor
Tanner,
store
stop
literally 2
laughing.
weeks ago.
Nothing's funny.
I drink Pink Whitney, which is a vodka that is pushed by NHL players. And I was at the liquor store in Dinkytown for a signing with one of the NHL players, and there were half as many kids under the age of 12 there with their parents getting Pink Whitney merchandise signed, and that's a vodka.
Yeah.
So as someone who's seen that, and someone again who's grown up with cannabis around me my whole life, like, this doesn't faze me at all. So I'm team house on this one.
And I doubt any of those kids drank the vodka.
Correct. They were there for the person kind of thing. I was just like, okay, you're here because of the branding, not because of the product.
This is like one of those things where it's like, like this doesn't protect children.
No.
It just like
I need to be
puts
protected
more
from the children.
guardrails. We're playing the guardrail game again.
Guardrail
on the
game.
industry.
Minnesota guardrail game.
Where it's like, okay, you can't do this because like a kid might think it's like you're making up these weird theoreticals
Situations.
to like make yourself like worked up.
justify what you
Yeah.
want to pass.
People that have ideas like this that they want to make law are the type of people you would not want to go on a trip with because they'll be like the most miserable travel companions. Like, we've got to stop at this rest stop for 5 minutes
I need to take a
or we're
picture
going to
by it.
leave you.
Oh no.
So we're going with the house one on this, where we're not including the language banning cartoons, toys, robots, a bunch of other stuff.
The gavel has been gavelled.
It's been gabbled.
It's like no one's like think about it like a business. No one is marketing towards children because children are not going.
They don't
to
even
buy
get to
it.
come in the
They
stores.
don't have money.
Yeah, like, what
kids
do-
don't have money.
It's just so silly.
The next one that we've got, so we're going to have signs inside of dispensaries that tell people not to operate a motor vehicle or heavy machinery while under the influence of cannabis. All right, yeah, whatever. I'll find a sign.
They're all going to be driving away with their cannabis.
Yeah,
but okay.
all of them. But the question is, should that sign also say that people should not operate motor vehicles or heavy machinery for 10 hours after consuming cannabis?
Guardrail.
Do
No.
you guys feel
Where
10
does this
hours?
number come from?
I don't even know about the house
I would show
version.
you, but I can't show my butt on camera.
That's for a paid site that Tanner may have.
yeah. Come to my OnlyFans. You can see where that
OnlyPlans.
where that.
I have an OnlyFans account too.
We've actually talked about your OnlyFans account on like 3 or 4 episodes. now.
Everyone does after
smokes
COVID.
For different strokes.
Incredible.
Wes gonna be called different
See, we should
strokes
be
for
worried
different
about the
folks
OnlyFans for the
different
children, not the character.
I know. There are going to be more provisions around what you're allowed to package on your cannabis product than.
Oh, then sex sites.
Yeah.
Or like
Don't
Bitcoin,
even use
bro.
the color green.
All right. Well, so
This one super silly. You know, it's a made up number that feels safe.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where we need to just let people must not operate a vehicle or heavy machinery while under the influence. Bang, skitty. We don't need to put like who's enforcing that 10 hours? Like, why is the specificity needed for that? Is what I
mean, the thing is, being under the influence of cannabis is not the same as being impaired. I mean, there's a lot of pharmaceutical drugs that people have in their system that would probably be considered borderline impairment.
yeah, if you were to
That
get
shit is not illegal.
opioids, it tells you not to operate. It doesn't say don't operate for 12 hours after taking this. It just says be safe. Don't do it.
Exactly.
Cannabis consumers, be safe.
Be smart.
You know what's different about cannabis than alcohol and driving? Nobody wants to drive when they're too high. You're going to find a lot of people
Amen.
who are too drunk who will drive, but you're not going to find somebody who,
Not me.
you
that
know,
was just
drive
like
way too hard and had too many edibles that's going to start driving.
no.
They're going to want to pull the fuck over.
They're gonna be where they
Too
are.
Or
busy
eat,
snacking,
or
yeah.
Come
paint,
pick me up. I can't.
or pet
Or
an
go for a
animal.
walk instead of driving.
Go take a nap.
I'm like, oh, you got a dog? I don't want to drive anywhere.
Like,
This is
well,
my
I had
dog.
500 milligrams of edibles and I feel like I can drive just fine. Like, nobody's doing that.
And if you are, why? Quit making us look bad.
Well, guys, sort of like the
And the
real
more-
conference committee. We've come down to the final issue, and we only have like a minute to talk about it.
I hope they have this much fun behind closed doors.
Oh,
I hope
I'm
that
sure
you guys
they
giggle
do.
like this.
Not
I'm
in the
sure they're gonna
legislature.
bring it closer to the wire than we are.
Oh, way closer. So bringing it down to the wire, the House versions did not include any early cultivation. So we're going to see licenses
Messy.
go out when those are issued and the rules are in place. Then people can start growing. The Senate's version did say the office must authorize a social equity applicant with pre-approval for meso, micro, or cultivator who has provided a certificate from their local government with approval to grow cannabis once rules are in place regarding to do that. So in essence, they're going to establish temporary rules for these cultivators, and then they're going to keep working on the rest of the rules. This will allow plants to start growing, allow our industry to start being able to have cannabis only from these social equity pre-approved licenses. Do we think that should be included in the final bill? What do you guys think?
Again, after new information, yeah. I mean, sure.
Yeah,
Seeds in the ground, baby.
I think something I'm curious about is municipals, because like if
Yeah.
I'm a muni and I got my plans, and this fucker with the pre-approval comes around, he's like,
Yeah.
I can grow too.
Yeah.
It'll be but yeah, I think early cultivation is. I hate calling it early cultivation too, because we've been legal for a year. It's just
Exactly.
cultivation.
It's just cultivation on a timeline that allows our industry to have product when
Like,
it starts.
We are already 22, 23 months into no,
Nope.
we've
are about
been 8
Stoner
months.
math. Yeah, but I mean, we're coming up
I was
to
thinking
like,
of, we're on track for like 22
Yeah.
months.
but it's been like a year since the bill has passed, and
Yes.
we don't. I'm not trying to throw shade at anyone. We don't have a director for our program. Like, we've not been advancing at the speed that I think we all thought we would be a year ago today. So, do we think early cultivation should be included to maybe start jumpstarting that forward?
Yeah, it's a
Yes.
risk. It's a risk. It's a business risk. So the people willing to take it, we should not be saying no. You have to wait when they know that they can do it and we know they can do it and
Yep.
we want it. It just it needs to happen.
I mean, how early is early?
Exactly. It's not even
We
that
don't.
much
Yeah.
earlier.
What was the date exactly for early when they're gonna start it?
We would see people starting to grow.
Like
In essence, once they have that early license and approval from their local government, that approval needs to go out like end of the summer, so we could see seeds going in the
September.
ground.
Like
August,
August,
September.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if the average crop takes like 4 or 5 months, is that right? It's
Hey,
going to be
grower
ready a
class
couple
person.
months.
Such a great question. Yeah. So I
Before-
mean, I think what I've heard is, let's say we have seeds in the ground like today. We're gonna need at least like 4 months to be able to have some sort of product that people can have, and that's assuming that everything goes right.
that's like if you just grow. That's just like
And if
for
you're starting
growing.
from seed
That's
without
just for
clone.
growing, yeah.
And
It's,
that's a big thing where, like, I mean, when I was doing the caregiver stuff, talking to growers, is a lot of these growers who are thinking about applying for any of these licenses are like, is this for seed or for clone? Like, where does this start? Are we having to start from seed? Are you going to give any rights to people who may have the genetics for clones to actually maybe speed up the process of product? But that wasn't considered. So,
It looks like here, perhaps no.
no.
Well, this has been another mock conference committee.
Celebrate this night with me. Although it's not the last time. There's a fire inside of me. I wanna burn for you tonight.
And we're back. Super excited to be sitting here in the studio today with the one and only minimum wage Tim himself, Tim Frederick. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, super excited to have you today. I've been knowing about you and your coffee for a couple of months now. I think I met you at a Canna Connect event a few months back. But just to give us a little bit of background, tell us a little bit about yourself and the start of minimum wage Tim.
Yeah, just from a coffee perspective, I grew up around here in the Twin Cities, but I went to college out in Eau Claire, Wisconsin at the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. And I had a saxophone professor out there that was really into coffee and actually had just moved from KC, and they have a great scene down there. So it was him that introduced me initially to like the AeroPress, which if you know, that's cool.
Very cool.
Cool way to make coffee, and that was like my primary method for years. And then the first time he ever loaned me his AeroPress, he gave me this naturally processed coffee that just tastes like strawberries, which just blew my mind at the time. I'd never tasted anything like that. So that's got me interested in just like the brewing aspect, home brewing, and like looking around for coffees that were really good. And then, naturally I started discovering those brands that are really well regarded in Wisconsin and Minnesota. Think Ruby, Wonder State, and then we have like Dogwood Spy House over here.
Yeah, for sure.
So I got really into those. But then as far as roasting, there was a coffee company that started in Eau Claire at the time when I was going to school there. And they had a shop for like a year or so, but that wasn't a big part of it. It was like a lot of wholesale. I don't know if they really did a lot of direct consumer, but they had this cold brew that was bottled. It was in all the grocery stores in town, which was really cool. And they're unfortunately no longer in operation. They were called Soul Brewed Coffee. But that just opened my eyes to the whole roasting thing. And I wouldn't say that I got really into the actual mechanics of roasting. I was in college at the time. I was pretty busy, doing other stuff, studying and whatnot, sort of, I guess.
Allegedly.
Yes, allegedly studying. I'll say that. I'll say that for the cameras.
Yeah. So sort of like other people that I know, but from the cannabis space, where maybe it was that introduction to good cannabis and sort of seeking out good cannabis that led them into the industry. It was really that seeking out of just like, what is the best coffee that I can get for myself that really sort of guided you down that route?
Right. And it's like, this is where I come from kind of as a musician too. It's like you like certain music so much that you listen to growing up or maybe when you're older that you discover, and you get kind of like, I think the only really word for it is like obsessed with that thing. And then you have this drive, certain people do, and like a generative drive where you see that and you're like, I have to do that thing. I have to make something like that. So when I hear really good music, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. It's like, oh, I want to make something as good as that, which kind of nags at the mind. And, but you can really appreciate it then too, because then you appreciate what goes into it as well. It's just kind of interacting with things on a different level. And a lot of people have their thing that they interact with like that.
So take us through some of your music background as well. And I'm sure there's a lot of artists and things but take us kind of through your own playing journey and what you like and what you're skilled at.
Yeah. I really come from that kind of from a community aspect, and that's why I do coffee as like my thing, because in a lot of ways the community around that is similar to the music community, and that's what a lot of people are initially introduced to music through. Like you start in elementary school or middle school, learning your instrument, and then you're in a little concert band or whatever, and you like being in with that same group of people all the time, and then maybe when you're in like high school or something, you start making your own little bands with your friends and things like that. I started playing saxophone like in 5th grade. And it's one of those things where you just kind of have a competence. I was like, I really like this. And then I got really into Charlie Parker and like all the old like, bebop kind of jazz, like straight ahead jazz kind of thing. And did that in high school and made a lot of friends just around the Twin Cities by being in this like audition band that started by this awesome dude named David Mitchell. That's just like this, I don't know, he's probably like a middle-aged dude, plays saxophone, but he had a career in like tech or something, and he was able to retire at a pretty early age. And then he used his time basically to build these big bands that kids from around the Twin Cities could audition for. And there was like a band 1, 2, 3. And so I did it when I was a sophomore and was in 3 and then 2 and then 1. And I'm still friends with a lot of those people. And I like went to college with a lot of them and played music. A lot of people from those groups went to the East or West Coast, LA, New York. And then kind of the rest of us that stayed around here, a lot of us went to Eau Claire because there's a really good music, kind of I would call it studio music program, like big band and playing in recording studios and things like that, just that kind of professional musician type vibe. I was doing that, playing saxophone, was really serious about it. I ended up studying full-time in the saxophone studio where I had that professor that introduced me to coffee. So
wow. So what
really
did the degree end up as?
Well, so I got my major in economics, and then I just got a minor. But I was able to, because of the time that I started before they transitioned purely to like a classical saxophone degree, which I still had to do my juries, which is like your end of the semester, is like your final, kind of like your playing final. I still had to do that classical repertoire for that because I was like full time in the studio. But I only got the minor like a thing, and then I got my major in economics.
Okay, right on. Now, economics, how does that transition, and go a little longer and deeper with us as far as like the supply chain goes with your coffee? Like, you understand it as a commodity, but you also are super, like, you appreciate the craft and the small batchness, and take us through like where your coffee comes from.
Yeah, the thing that got me into that, like, that's been the most exciting thing since moving. Just with the coffee, I started roasting, and I was at home, and eventually I moved to a larger space, which is like a collective of roasters, like the smaller, like, you know, a lot of them are bigger than me, but they're, you know, kind of your local small batch roasters. We all got together, and it was through them that I met a lot of the people that I'm sourcing my coffee through now. And then, you know, those harvests, they come once a year, sometimes twice, and some places, you know, it's kind of throughout the year. But each time they have a new harvest, everyone's kind of reaching out again and sending out their samples and maybe visiting town. And every time that happens, I'm able to meet, you know, a new group of people that are the ones that are kind of going to be coming out here and visiting, or they have a connection to here. A lot of my coffees have been from Honduras, and very early on, I got connected with a guy named Andros, who he grew up in Honduras, and he sources it, and he imports coffees from just a few different producers there, and he works very closely with the farmers and visits. And I was able to FaceTime one of them that I've been buying coffee from this past couple of months. You know, I was able to talk to him a few weeks ago, and just like having that special connection where it's like, yeah, I mean, he's very available. You know, if you're a coffee roaster and you're going to buy some coffee, like, he is going to kind of go that extra mile and really like make sure you have everything you need. We just kind of connected on a little bit of a personal level, and we're kind of just friends. He went to school here. He worked here for a long time. He lived here in Minneapolis. And then, so it's just kind of a number of people like that. You know, I could keep talking about each individual person, and I've been able to get like some different coffees from each source. And then we're very fortunate to have a big importer here in town, which I haven't worked with a ton in the past year, but I'll probably continue to do just for, you know, the logistics. The economics wise, it's funny. I did go actually work in supply chain, the supply chain area after college. I worked at a company where I did intermodal transport. Basically, I was like managing these accounts where we put stuff on trains and sent it back in containers and all that. But I would say that's not my area of expertise in coffee. It's a whole different world. Yeah, we did like White Claw. Like can't you know? It wasn't things like that. You know, like seltzers and things of that nature.
You can tell community is important to you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that. I can totally.
I'm
I
just
was
chasing that. Yeah.
thinking the same thing. You see that in music, you see it in coffee, you see it in cannabis, whatever it be. It's sort of finding that sense of community. It's really
and
cool.
it was music people. I guess I could shout out my friend Maddie Thies, who is a bass player here in town. We connected over music when I was just very first started putting my coffee out there, and then it was they ended up They had worked at SK and ended up connecting me with a lot of coffee people that way, and that was eventually through a series of events ended up how I ended up getting into the collective.
Very cool.
So it's just like it came from that coffee the music community initially.
That's neat. Yeah, I have a connection to SK too. It's cool sort of being here in the Twin Cities and having so many great like coffee just like so much high quality coffee. I feel like I go to other cities and maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, but there's sort of that deficit of that. Love being here in the cities.
It's very welcoming to newcomers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I kind of came on the scene and everyone has their own niche and their own very specific voice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, you know, there's definitely a community over competition feeling amongst everybody. We all hang out. I would consider all of us to be at least decently good friends at this point. Like we just see each other so much in the roastery and we're, you know, in the same thing. You know, there's not a ton of people that are either production roasters running a business. You know, sometimes it's just like between entrepreneurs, like the way that we all connect. But there's also that added element of we also do coffee. You know,
that's
so
cool.
We really talk a lot.
That's really cool. So you're our first guest that we've had on this show that is not in the cannabis industry, be it an ancillary business, be it, trying to run a grow or any of the side of the cannabis industry that is multifaceted these days. I'm curious to ask you, what is your relationship with cannabis? I mean, we've talked personally at a couple of these events, but if you go to like the minimum wage Tim website, it's not like there's like the THC coffee product. What is your connection to cannabis? I mean, we know it, but tell them.
Yes, of course. I've always been interested, but when legalization rolled around, that was right when I was starting up, and I think really I had been connected to a few people in the industry beforehand, but when it really ramped up was Bob from Cannajoy. I was at the Nokomis Farmers Market, which is just down the road from their store in South Minneapolis, and he just comes barreling in, I see this dude just walking head on, like straight toward my booth, like with a vengeance, and he comes up and he's like, "Oh, a coffee vendor? Like you're from here?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I was roasting in my garage, actually, just like kind of right over there until I moved into a bigger space. So I got a whole thing going. Here's my like subscription program." He's like, "Oh, you use subscriptions? Like, do you think this is something we could just like serve in our store?" I was like, "Oh," like he was just like right away into that. I'm like, I never really had thought of that too much. I hadn't really gotten any wholesale at that point.
Bob's the man.
Bob's the man. He's just so enthusiastic about bringing people up. He's been very successful with his store. Him and Aaron, like the two of them together and their whole crew, they're just like very dynamic. So I mean, he's just like trying to pull other people up along with him.
Let's stay there for a second. Like you both have had community events at Cannajoy. Like, what is it about that space that creates such good feelings and vibes?
I feel like it's just sort of every component being thoughtfully constructed together. You look at the art and it's not just, hey, we had to fill the wall with stuff, so we went to Goodwill and threw some art on the wall. But all of it is either created by Aaron or another local artist. It's, stickers from all the people that they've worked with. It's coffee from local coffee roasters. It's seeds from local seed company. I feel like it's brick by brick that building is local community.
Yeah, I totally agree. How about you, Tim? Like, what do you notice? What are your takeaways? You were just there on Saturday, right? So.
Yes, yeah, and I was there the Thursday before.
We ran into each other for sure.
Yeah, I was delivering the coffee. Yeah. They do the legwork of actually being in the store and talking to people. Like, that's the reason that they can have the coffee. Aaron always says when I come in, he's like, "Oh, we went through a bunch this week. Like, a bunch of people came in looking at seeds, and when you're doing that, you're not just coming in and picking up like some edibles and leaving. You're looking for something that you're going to tend to and grow and like really care about. So you want to hear about it, and who better to ask than like them? They're experts in this.
Have a cup of coffee, ask some
and then
questions.
You have a coffee. Yeah, it's like that's why they go through a bunch. It's like, well, we had a bunch of seed people and they stayed for a while and then went through the coffee. It's like, so it's just kind of a natural fit there. It just like literally just on a basis of, hey, we'll sign up for your subscription. I put like a grinder in there. Like just a home grinder, because they go through just a couple drip machine things a day.
Yeah,
so you can go in there anytime. And
they pack a couple bowls.
Yeah, they pack a couple bowls worth of coffee.
I love that. Yeah, I've been in there a couple of times, and it's always nice knowing that when you walk in, there's not just going to be seeds and product, which is great, but there's a hot cup of coffee just sort of waiting for you, and it's really good.
There's always people on the couches just like talking in that back bar area, which is where we did our event on Saturday. So I was doing a pour over thing where I just basically was sampling and putting a face, if they've seen me before, and it was great having the Midwest Cannabis Professionals thing going on.
Yeah,
well.
Shout out to Alicia. Honestly, Saturday morning was like my only day off. It's been hard for me to make some of those, but I just go so hard M through F, and then Saturday morning I'm just like, please just let me stay home. But for those who don't work in cannabis 24/7, like you should definitely check out Cannajoy and the Midwest Cannabis Professionals, because they're having, I think, bi-monthly meetups there now. I think they've switched over now to just hosting at Cannajoy and utilizing your coffee, right?
Yep, that's going to be only minimum wage Tim's Coffee. So if you want to just come by there on every other Saturday, a bunch of cannabis professionals getting together. So if you're a professional or if you're not, it can be valuable. I've gotten so much out of, even though I don't grow at home, I'm not in the industry. I've gotten out a lot out of being, associated with yourselves and like coming to your classes. Like that living soil class a couple weeks ago was really instructive. That was heavy.
Oh yeah, drinking from the fire hose, that's for sure.
Modest, like one piece of feedback, like going off that class was like, there's going to be less dirt at the next one, right? Yeah, for sure. And then, just to turn it around a little bit, but staying on cannabis, Tim, let's talk about how we got connected. Canna Connect, Minimum Wage Tim, you were at our cleanup events. I think that's when you met Tanner for the first time. And then we met through David and some of the Friday morning, what was I calling that? The coffee and cannabis, which we did with Greenspoon Martyr. And on the back half of that, we utilized Minimum Wage Tim and your team. So, that's probably how we met through Hemp House, right? Through connections over there at the Hemp House.
It was, yeah, through David. Yeah. I had, after starting to work with CannaJoy, I was just kind of interested in the space, and a very good friend of mine, actually, that, those high school Twin Cities audition bands that I was talking about, we were the two tenor players in a lot of those bands, and in college. Cool. But he's been with Hemp House since they started. So I was like, oh, hey, can you just introduce me to like whoever is the leadership or just people that are doing stuff, Yeah. So I talked to David, which is great. And then since then I've gotten to know Dalton pretty well. And he was there on Saturday with me. And so that very first coffee event, we did a collaboration with Fizzy.
Yes. Fizzy cold brew.
Yeah. And I did some cocktails, and this is going to be coming back at some point. I did some cocktails, like cold fashioned. I called it. You can't really call it a mocktail because there's THC in there.
Right. I mean, actually, I do want to have someone on from the non-alcoholic community at some point to talk about where the line is drawn when it comes to THC, mocktail, no alcohol.
Just having that conversation at Modest with a good friend of ours.
That's an ongoing discussion?
It is. Well, in Minnesota especially.
Yeah. I think it's people that maybe have taken the mindset of NA as I'm not consuming intoxicants versus other people that have taken it as alcohol isn't good for me and I don't want alcohol, and sort of trying to find the bridge of this community that brings people together, really sort of two different viewpoints, but can unite in a illegal state. But now that you can get cannabis beverages, does a cannabis beverage count as NA?
Can see it both ways.
I'm starting to call it mini sober.
There we go.
Because we're just a little sober. We're not all the way
Just
sober.
a little bit. Just a little bit.
Appropriating California sober.
Well, what else should we talk about, Tim? I mean, it's been absolutely great to get to know you over these last 4 or 5 months. It's gone really fast, but we've enjoyed it, and you show up and you do such a great job when you come, and we appreciate it.
Well, it's been, really great for me just being in this space with people that are also really driven because it is a new industry. So there's a lot of people in the space just hitting the ground running, and the people are super excited about it, like having these events. And for me, I like to do, farmers markets. I like to do samplings in the cafes that carry my coffee, because those are groups of people that when you're just one person, you got to be really effective about where you're spending your time. So if I'm going to go sit somewhere for 3-4 hours, or less even, and be sampling coffee and talking to people, I want those people to be predisposed to my message. So either they're already at a coffee shop, so okay, they drink coffee, that's a good start. The cannabis connection I think is very obvious to me, though it may seem a little more out there. It's, these people that are taking the time to go to a class where they're learning about how to grow their cannabis and take care about what they're consuming and what they're growing are naturally predisposed to at least being interested in knowing a lot about where their coffee comes from, which is the backbone of my brand, and that's the backbone of a lot of specialty coffee these days, which is great. A lot of people talking about it, and a lot of farmers, for better or worse, are very willing to put their story out there, and we got to be careful about sometimes just throwing that out there and being like, okay, yeah, I know this person when we don't really. But there's a lot of really cool transparency stuff going on in coffee, and we're continuing to move in that direction. But that sort of thing is really interesting to someone that wants to know where their food, where their cannabis comes from, and all these people are interested in it. I've had a lot of really good conversations and learned a lot of things myself.
Very cool.
Like when I went to that class at Modest the other day.
Yeah. So create a scene for our listeners, our viewers, if you will. I think describe for us a type of coffee, a method of coffee consumption, be it like pour over, Insta brew, whatever you're looking for, and then music to listen to. Sort of create like a Saturday morning. We're looking to relax a little bit. What would you recommend for people?
Yeah, hi-fi lounge. I mean,
Do I go with a deep cut record or something that would be awesome? You know what? I'll do something that I listen. No, I'm not going with the deep cut at all. I'm going with an awesome record because it was super sunny last Saturday. I don't know if you remember that. I was building one of those particle board dressers.
Cool.
So I made myself a little bit of coffee, and I put on a record. So I made myself the Burundi Nigashiro naturally processed coffee. Now I'm putting out a video pretty soon on that where we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But that's kind of been my flagship East African coffee. I have categories. Latin America, East Africa, and Indo-Pacific kind of covers all the parts of the world where you have coffee. Just to have some sort of framework where I can rotate things out and have people trying new things with some sort of context behind it. Oh yeah, okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So we got, we're setting the scene.
We're setting the scene. We're setting the scene. I was thinking about my coffee too much.
No, I love it. I love it.
We're
It's
setting
great.
the scene. And you know what I put on? I put on pet sounds.
Okay, there we go.
Awesome. It was
Classic
awesome.
Beach Boys. Love it.
And there's
For
some
sure.
of that Barry sax in there, and I followed it up with that Sturgill Simpson record with like horns on it, with the Daft Kings on it, because I needed some more of that Barry sax.
I love that sound.
Sweet. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Tim, you're going to be joining us at Canna Connect on April 6th. Actually, in the Speakeasy, we're going to be brewing like cold brew cocktails. We're going to have some 4 Canna beverages available.
Sweet.
It's Canna Connect for the people, right? So we're taking care of the coffee. We're taking care of the beverages. People can come experience Minimum Wage Tim's and the new Canna Connect beverage. Have you thought about that a little bit more? And can you share any details about what you might be teasing in April?
Oh yeah, I got all my cold brew cocktails coming back. I've been thinking about them all winter.
The Timmy Tonic?
The Timmy Tonic, the Timmy Palmer. I'll leave you to guess what that might be.
Legally, we can't say on this podcast.
say.
No.
Dead billionaire. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they'll connect 4 and they'll figure it out.
There we go. I like it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us in the studio today. We so appreciate it. We'll have you back again more, if not for any other reason than just to drink some really good coffee. Obviously, people can go to CannaJoy, try your coffee. Where would you send people to learn a little bit more about your brand, maybe to order some coffee for themselves?
Of course, yeah. MinimumWageTims.com is the spot. I put everything on there. I have subscription plans. If you live in the city of Minneapolis, I will deliver for free. I have a route, like a paper boy. Yep.
Nice.
And so the subscription plans are my main thing, but I always have new coffees, so you can always keep checking back and seeing what I have and order, bag by bag if you want to just try certain things. And then you can also find a few of my coffees at Rustica Bakery, Southdale, in Edina in the mall, and then also in Westlake.
Yeah.
There by the
formerly Calhoun Square, the Calhoun, or
no, it's not that. It's the, what do you call it?
near the Barnes and Noble.
Yeah,
near
that thing.
Lake Bede-Makaska.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Over there. And Cosmic Coffee in Northeast.
I went there finally. I saw it, and we're connected now.
That's good. You're kind of connected.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, we're kind of connected. Thank you for coming on the show, and we can't wait to see you again soon.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And we're back. Another episode of Cooking with Clem. Clem Dabney, how you doing, my man?
Doing pretty good. So today we've got, for today's episode, we're going to be doing like a maple sugar coated bacon bite. So what you need for this is you need some thick cut bacon, and you're going to roll it
Like a joint.
like a joint. And then you're going to end up, we're putting it in the air fryer today. I usually bake these at home, and then I'll finish them on a flat top. So basically we're going to, roll up our bacon.
You almost get them into like a nug.
Yeah, because bacon, we should call them bacon nugs.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, so
That's the only reason why I'm
you
here.
make your nice little bacon nug, get it rolled, then you're going to cook it in the air fryer. You want thick cut bacon. We're going to cook it or bake it at 400 degrees.
What I like about cooking with air fryers is you can smell it. You can smell it coming.
Mm-hmm.
You can smell what that air fryer's cooking. And I also like that they don't take so long. But if you do have the time, it's probably more fun to bake it in an oven versus an air fryer.
Yep, yeah. I personally like baking on an air fryer and then finishing on like a skillet.
And then you finish the nug on a skillet. So do you like finish around each of the sides in a way? Like you,
Yep. So we're gonna use a little baster to coat on Dijon mustard on both sides, or one side at a time.
Sure.
We'll do Dijon mustard, put some maple sugar on top, and then on the flat top of the griddle, we're gonna caramelize that maple sugar.
Oh yeah.
And then we'll do the same thing to the other side, flip them. So they're like, yeah.
So, you know, I'm familiar with maple syrup. I'm familiar with sugar. How do you get to maple sugar?
So maple can be processed into like a few different products. So like maple candies, maple cream, and also maple sugar. So like when you make candies or cream, actually making candies and cream is very similar. So you're cooking the syrup up to a certain set point, and then for candies you start agitating it immediately and then get it in a mold. For cream, you're cooking it to a set temperature, and then you crash cool it in like an ice bath and churn it. So you're making really tiny seed crystals that make like a spreadable product. You could think Nutella or peanut butter.
And you have to flash freeze to get that consistency with creams?
So I wouldn't say you're like freezing it, but you're like crash cooling it to like 60 or 70 degrees, and then starting to churn it. If you get it too cool, it's like impossible to churn.
And how much have you learned about candy cooking, just probably in like the last 2 years, like through your job as chief science officer? Have you been exposed to a lot more in the kitchen?
I definitely have been, yeah. So yeah, as chief science officer at Superior Molecular, and then at Retro Bakery, yeah, I've got to make everything from hard candies to gummies to enemas to sugars.
Yeah, I mean, Retro Bakery is known as the Willy Wonka of Minnesota cannabis, so I'm sure you're exposed to a little bit of everything.
Yeah, we get to do everything. It's really cool, we've been finally able to get a bunch of cool new toys. We've got fancy mixers. We've got almost basically like a still beverage production facility. Wow. We added spray drying technology so we can make cannabinoid powders. We've got a high pressure homogenizer where we can make water soluble cannabinoids, which end up in beverages and any kind of liquid beverage. We've got the liquid cannabinoids, and then for any dry goods, we've got the powders.
CSOs love those new toys, those new manufacturing
give me
toys.
A toy. Let me come up with an SOP, and then let other people do it every day.
That's cool. That's cool. I mean, that's what you put the chief in. You put the chief in chief science officer.
So yeah, we're just gonna let this cook until it gets done. We're baking it right now at 400. I can hear the fats dripping now, but I think we'll take a little pause here, and then we're gonna start doing another recipe from the Doc Dav's collection.
All right, we're gonna put the tea in THC, and we're back. Another episode of the Northern Lights podcast, special edition, Cooking with Clem.
Hey, so now we're gonna work on probably the most detailed, complex, and mind-boggling recipe that we have.
I don't even know where to start with this one.
Oh man! So this is we're gonna be cooking tea. So we're making tea. So we make at Dr. Dab's. We make a morning, a daytime, and a nighttime tea blend. So our nighttime tea won CBD's Most Innovative at the 2023 Legacy Cup. So that's like a CBN CBD THC product.
Nice.
So today we're going to showcase our morning tea.
Yes.
So it's an organic black tea with lemon peel, mango, chaga, lion's mane, cordyceps, and reishi. And it's got 5 milligrams of THC and 50 milligrams of CBG.
Wow.
So yeah, when we first were making our teas, we would have them just bagged up, 50 grams of tea. Or no, it's 17.5 grams of tea with whatever milligrams of cannabinoid. And we'd have a tea ball in there and a scoop, so they could scoop their serving into the tea ball. But now we've evolved and we're making tea bags. Thanks to the Minnesota Department of Health. They came cracking down on us.
So nice of them to add more packaging to your product.
I know. Thanks to the Minnesota Department of Health.
That's great.
So now we have single serving, sexy tea bags.
Because Lord knows you couldn't put 2 bags in one tea.
Exactly. Yeah. No more than one serving now. So yeah, right now we're making. So we've got a tea maker. We've turned it on to black/herbal tea, which is about 205 degrees.
That's nice.
Yeah, on our.
I didn't realize you had 3 varieties of teas.
Yeah. We tried to formulate, one that's good for nighttime, one that's good for the morning, and then one kind of daytime formulation with different types of tea. So like the nighttime's an herbal tea, so that's lavender and chamomile flowers. Whereas the morning time you maybe need a little bit of caffeine, so we've got a black tea.
Yeah. Is the nighttime tea your most popular?
So far, it is the most popular. That's probably our second most popular product right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard from other people that the daytime, nighttime varieties that they have, that the nighttime is more popular, that it tends to be that people are buying these products for sleep.
Yep.
Yeah. And that makes sense. Although I kind of like the morning stuff too. I like that jittery jolt.
Yeah, I need to get going. Like I'm a slow riser.
Sure.
I'm a night owl and definitely a slow riser. So the morning tea is really good for me, just to get me going.
When you're consuming cannabis at nighttime, what's your preferred method?
I guess I prefer to smoke cannabis at nighttime.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, that's probably most my preferred method that I use most often.
But for others, it might be the nighttime tea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's cool. I'm going to watch this just heat up, if you don't mind.
Felt like I was in an episode of Nardwuar for a second there.
Oh, man. I do love Nardwuar. Nardwuar.
Nardwuar. Doo-doo-doo-doo.
Doot, doot. The Nardwuar rabbit hole is like, it's such a fun one to go down. Like, you just keep finding like more and more episodes of your favorite musicians, and you're like,
That's a really cool way to like learn about quality musicians too. Like, I think that most of his interviews are with really intensely talented people.
yeah.
So it's just like you can just get down that rabbit hole of learning about.
And he's he takes such a personal approach that sometimes they get mad.
Yeah. How'd you know about that? It's like
It'd be like if I came to you and like just out of the blue and I just like started asking you about some like Bloomington shit that I like that you would have like. How does Steve know anything about Bloomington?
Yeah.
Like,
you were going to this roast beef shop or whatever.
yeah. Your dog Dabs. Of course we need to know about this.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, our water's ready. We've reached 205.
Assortment. Oh, say that again.
So our water's ready. We've reached 205. This is probably the hardest recipe of the day.
So tell me, where did you come up with this one?
We made 5 cups of water. So we're going to add 5 bags of tea.
Nice. And I'm going to look at this again, but you said what's the ratio on this? It's
5 milligrams of THC to 50 milligrams of CBG.
wow. And so then inside of our teapot here, we have 25 milligrams of THC and 250 milligrams of CBG.
Exactly.
Wow. I didn't even know that was compliant to the Minnesota Department of Health. As far as CBG goes, I didn't know.
I hope so.
Yeah, it is. Okay, cool.
Okay,
Yeah. Well, I gotta start buying this product because I love my CBG. I do.
Yeah, we gotta love this in between time with the temporary rules, where future maybe like 3-4 years from now, that kind of thing won't be allowed. But
Okay.
The laws change every so often. So I've
Right.
heard.
I think you know. Should we serve it up?
Yeah, I think we probably have about 1 more minute.
Okay.
And then, so we're steeping for 3 minutes. And then we'll pour it up.
So about 3 minutes on the steep is what you recommend for the tea bags.
Yep. About, 205, 212.
Yeah, I like that your tea maker has different settings for the type of tea that it is. I think the more that you learn about tea, the deeper you can really understand. Like there's a whole ritual and ceremony around tea that a lot of people in America probably don't even realize.
Yeah. It's cool to think. Yeah, because we don't have many products where we're like doing extraction at home. Tea is like,
That's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
It's a version of extraction.
Right. Yeah.
So I think we're probably there.
Okay.
Let's pour some cups.
And the flavor profile that we're expecting here, it's a black tea, you said?
Yep. A black tea with mango and lemon.
Mango and lemon. Okay. It's been fun as the podcast has evolved. We've really taken it up a level with trying products and just, we used to take like one gummy at a time, and now we're doing like 7 course options on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
Cool, man. And, we can throw in some maple syrup in here if you want, or just try it without any sweetener.
Check mine out.
Just going to let that cool down right now.
It's very hot.
The aroma is incredible. Like I can just smell the mango coming off of there. That's really good.
Yeah, thank you.
I just found at the grocery store the other day red mango.
Red mango.
Yeah, I'm used to the yellow mango.
Oh, the Alfonso's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the red mango's a little bigger. I'm excited to peel it up and try the flavor difference. Yeah. Shout out to the Mississippi market.
Mississippi market in the house.
Organic
So we kind of talked about it earlier, but so when is the next Canna Connect?
Well, fuck, man. It's on Saturday. It's coming up. It's April 6th, and I'm launching a beverage the night before at Modest.
Oh, nice. I'm going to have to be there.
Have you ever done that?
I have actually launched a beverage with Modest. We used to make what was called a blazed maple soda.
Yeah, that's right. And so did you use like your actual maple syrup in the beverage?
We did, yep.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it ends up kind of like a maple flavored cream soda.
Maple flavored cream soda. Mmm.
Like there's a creaminess. It doesn't taste like cream.
Okay.
But there's like that
Yeah.
creaminess mouthfeel you get from a cream soda.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Or like a root beer. There's just like this je ne sais quoi that's what's cool about it. So what flavor is the Canna Connect beverage?
So you'll appreciate this, right? You know a little bit about my background. I wanted to go for like something close to cold pressed juice to honor kind of my previous life. And so it's an apple, lemon, ginger flavor, which is one of my favorite cold pressed juices. And I learned making juices with Kamal. So it's an ALG THC seltzer, or apple, lemon, ginger THC seltzer. And then we've got natural terpenes in there from Finnegan's Farms.
Fire. Shout out Patrick Finnegan.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan, so I had to mention that. And from what I've heard, and I've had a few of the flavors, or I've had a few cans so far, like having that terpene mix to go along with the flavors, like it complements the apple, lemon, ginger. We could have went a little stronger on the ginger, but that's because I love ginger. Like not everyone has that palate. And so
I'm a huge ginger fan.
Yeah.
Ginger beer. What's the formulation on it?
So it's called 4-Canna because it's got 4 cannabinoids. And we went with 4 milligrams THC, 4 milligrams CBD, 4 milligrams CBD, 4 milligrams CBC.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah.
The entourage effect.
I'm a big fan.
So let's check on our bacon. Ooh, I think we're just about there on that.
The tea's good.
Yeah. Still a little warm.
There's a new word, like there's a new slang, like everybody's saying tea. Yeah, so like I don't know. We got to play onto that with your product, yeah.
We should, yeah. What's it slang for? Oh, like T for THC.
I think it's more bizarre than that. I'm gonna have to ask a Gen Z. I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'm getting old too.
Are you talking about people like spilling the tea? Like,
Yeah, it's an evolution of that.
okay. All right.
Mhm.
Oh, these kids these days.
It's hard to keep up. Damn that bacon smells good. The funny thing, like I like bacon, I love the smell of it and all that, but like I'm pretty pesky when it comes to like I prefer just to eat the muscle and not so much the fat.
Yep.
But I date the butcher's daughter and I get a lot of schlack at home because like she grew up just eating like and enjoying the whole mouthfeel of it all, you know?
Yep.
So when I go home to my fiance's parents, they're always just kind of giving me the side eye, like, oh, this guy's so picky, like, you know, and I mean, I eat it, but I just prefer that chewiness of the muscle and not the fat.
I agree. Yeah. It took me a very long time to start eating fat on bacon. I think it was like once I started like getting older and having really good steaks,
Yeah.
like having that beef fat, like if you like caramelize it like perfectly, this is not much better than a bite of mixed muscle and beef fat.
I got to tell you, like, Canna Connect is cool, and we're going to keep growing these events across Minnesota. But my real dream with legalization, maybe 2025, is weed and Wagyu.
Weed and Wagyu, yeah.
I think we've talked about this.
We talked about this in the
late
past,
after a cannabis college class, and like, I've got the plug on both. You know, so like, we gotta make it happen in 2025.
Cool. I mean, yeah, maybe that's a Canna Connect Doc Dabs collab is like a steak seasoning.
Right. Yeah. Oh, a steak seasoning. Yeah. Why not? You're doing a great job with all these other products. That's really good tea, Clem. I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. So now, yeah, we're going to pull either if you're doing it at home, maybe out of your air fryer, out of the oven.
So it's already cooked at home now. And what we're doing here is just crisping it up and really adding those finishing touches to make it more of a special nug. This is kind of like adding keef to the joint. I mean, we could eat the bacon right now, but it's not infused yet. So we got to layer some Dijon mustard on there so that it has what we were talking about is that maple sugar. So the maple sugar has something to grasp onto, and then we'll be able to lay some maple sugar on top of the mustard, on top of the bacon nug. And overall, like, do you have like a Finnish name for this kind of a food?
I don't. I just called it, maple sugar bacon.
Wow. Yeah.
But I do like the bacon nugs.
The bacon nugs with added keef sugar.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm sitting on quite a bit of CBG keef. Could have brought some of that today. I never think to use my CBG keef.
I think CBG is definitely underemployed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Press the keef.
All right, so basically, brushed on some Dijon mustard.
Okay.
Now,
That's a good flavor profile to go with the bacon.
and now
Ooh.
pouring on some of that maple sugar. So, 5 milligrams per pack.
Couple milligrams per nug.
Yep, a couple millions a nug.
This is fun. I mean, I can already just looking at the bacon, I can already tell how fun it's going to be to eat. And how often do you like to get into the kitchen, Clem, when you're not working at Retro Bakery?
I'd probably say, 3/4 of the days I probably
Yeah,
try to cook at least a meal or two.
sure. Do you have any like favorite breakfasts that you like to cook?
One of them that we made in an episode of the Cooking with Clem podcast is I like making Gruyere pancakes.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that. I had never heard of those. So that was on an earlier episode. I wasn't here for it, but what is what makes those pancakes special?
So what makes those special is that you're using yeast to kind of pop up and create little bubbles within the batter.
Okay.
And then
Cool.
and you only cook them on one side. But one like I guess I'd call it the marketable feature of Begrier is that since it creates all these tiny little bubbles, it's like space for your sweetener to go into. So if you put honey on them, that's how they're traditionally done. We used infused maple syrup.
Yeah. I get it.
But yeah,
You could probably use this thing now.
Yeah, I should use that thing. I'm using my hands.
If you want to learn how to make those, you actually can go back and check out that episode. Clem himself teaches you how to make them. Highly recommend.
That's on the Minnesota Cannabis College YouTube channel?
Minnesota Cannabis College YouTube channel. Yeah.
Wow.
Check it on Northern Lights podcast. It's going to be great.
Some comments about bare-fisting the bacon.
Bare fisting. You got to give me the recipe on how you made this tea. This was really good.
Definitely, yeah.
Wow. So this is nice bacon nugs finished with Dijon mustard and maple sugar. And this is all things that you can make at home using Doc Dab's maple sugar.
Yeah, we'll let these stand and cool down before we give them a try.
Yeah, absolutely.
While we're waiting for them to cool, should we go grab some of our friends from the Dabbler Depot, see if they want to try them?
Yeah, I think at least one or two friends would love to try one of these.
We'll go grab them.
Oh, yeah. Grab all the friends. And we're back with the Dabbler Depot crew.
We're back with the Dabbler Depot crew. So right now we're calling these bacon nugs. So it's so we baked bacon at 400, very thick cut bacon in the air fryer today, or you could do it in your oven at home.
Rolled it up like a joint.
Rolled it like a joint. Yeah, cooked it till they got crispy on the outside, and then we broke out our griddle. We coated them with Dijon mustard, and then topped them with Doc Dab's maple sugar to get that nice caramelization on the outside of these bacon nugs.
Baby.
Dig in, Will. Let's see it.
See it, Will. Yeah, happily. Oh my god.
I'm going to join you.
It was like crispy, fatty, sweet. You got a little bit.
I like the all over the place, the flavor. It's
Yeah,
just
it really is, but it's all playing really well together. It's got that like sweet savory combo. Like, wow.
it's like a
That is
party in my mouth.
fantastic, y'all. Wow.
You guys bacon fans?
Big bacon fans.
Sure. Yeah. This is yummy. How long you been doing bacon nugs?
Actually, not very long.
That's cool. I've never rolled it like this. I've rolled things around bacon, but I've never just rolled bacon.
I was in an Instagram rabbit hole. And I came across this, and I was like, I gotta try that out.
Oh, that is the best. Kale showed me this other Instagram rabbit hole he went down recently of finding this guy that does terrariums for a living.
Yeah.
And it's like you just jump down those holes and you're in it for like 6 hours and you're like, wow, this guy has ladybugs that he's had for years. It's just crazy to whenever you jump down those things and then you find these
Delicious
bacon nugs.
nugs.
Super cool. So this is with your Doc Dab's new maple sugar. And so, how'd you get it this fine? Normally when I think of sugar, I think of like a little bit like chunkier.
I use I basically pulverize it and then sieve it.
Oh, okay. That's cool. Sweet. So you can get that even like texture as well and consistency.
Exactly.
That's sweet.
Yeah, because if you add that to anything hot now, it'll dissolve real easy.
You're a food scientist.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, you better pull that.
That
away
just
from us.
disappeared. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us on another episode of Cooking with Clem.
Holy shit, y'all. That's so good.
All right. Well, that's another episode of Northern Lights. Thanks so much for Minimum Wage Tim for coming on, sharing a little bit more about his coffee journey. Thanks to Clem for coming on, sharing a little bit more about his recipes. And Kayla, thanks so much for coming on and joining us today.
Thanks for having me, you guys. I
Yeah,
appreciate
great
it.
discussion.
Yeah, thank you.
Super fun co-hosting.
Yeah, well, we're going to be back next week. We got an interview with Jordan Fallis of NativeCare. Really excited to dig deeper into that, hear a little bit more about his journey to getting here in Minnesota. But in the meantime, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Reddit, YouTube. Subscribe.
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky. Yeah, all those. Or just like out in public. Yeah. Give us a call. Thank you guys so much for listening.
Truth Social.
Truth Social.
Truth Social.
Christian Mingle.
Turkey
Farmer
bacon.
Finder.
Yeah.
It should be Farmer Finder.
I feel like we should get a J-Date account. All right, that's all we got for today. We'll be right back.
That's not a bad idea.
Bye.
Northern Lights is a Minnesota Cannabis College production. This episode was produced by me, Tanner Barris, and by my co-hosts John Barty and Marcus Harkis. Production assistance from Shayna Payton and Steve Eigenman. Today's episode is presented by North Star Law Group, your trusted partner in Minnesota's burgeoning legal cannabis industry. The information provided in this podcast does not and is not intended to constitute legal advice, but is instead for general information purposes only. Information shared may not constitute the most up-to-date or legal information. No listener should act solely on the basis of information provided without first seeking their own legal counsel. The opinions and views expressed on this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect those of the Minnesota Cannabis College. Please listen responsibly. I think we could maybe start it by like which side of the beef are you on? Are you
Kendrick.
side Drake?
Kendrick Lamar.
Would anyone
say.
willingly say their side Drake
I've
these
only
days?
compared it to,
I'll be like,
and
he's
this is
Canadian.
slightly political,
They're
the
legal in
conflict in
Canada.
Gaza.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not really a war. One side's just bombing the other side.
Facts on facts.
That's incredible.
You hear that, Senator Klein? Facts on facts.
Incredible.
That was a hell of an analogy, John. Summarize
It was
succinctly.
the hard part 6
brutal.
was very much like not a diss track, but like a whoa. You're wrong.
Can we be done?
Yeah. I'm not a pedophile. People would know about it if I
I would
was.
be arrested if I was a pedophile. It's like, come on, guy.
Literally.
Damn, that sounds ruthless.
Dude, that was his defense. His only defense.
So
My son
there's
kept
a
me up
great Wikipedia page describing the entire beef, but it's written as if it's a war, and you can see like who's on what side of the conflict, and it shows like J. Cole up until April
This is gonna be my
24th,
Friday night.
2025. Incredible.
Doing dabs reading.
Goes back all the way to 2010. There were albums released in the quiet period that were like subtle diss tracks.
So I also went back to 2015, the song, I think it's 100 by Drake, where he the video's in Compton. And he is talking about like, I would have all your fans if I was on some conscious shit and not being like a pop star. And it was directly to Kendrick Lamar. And that
Incredible.
was 9 years ago.
Wow.
So
Interesting.
I just like that J. Cole on a track was like, hey, you, me, Drake, we're like the top 3. And Kendrick Lamar came back and he's like, no. It's me.
it's me and then it's everyone else.
Well,
And
with
he's
that,
damn right. Okay.
should we start another episode?
Yeah.
I mean, I actually think before this thing, Kendrick Lamar was my favorite rapper in this era.
Do you still feel that way after this?
Yeah, and I mean, I'm a J. Cole fan. I've never been a Drake fan, though. Like,
That's true.
I get his appeal, but I'm just not a pop culture type of guy.
That's fair.
I don't eat fast food either.
I still think of him as Jimmy from Degrassi. So
Dude, so
until he acknowledges that, I will not acknowledge him.
in middle school when I was introduced to Drake,
Yes.
and I saw who it was, and I was like, that's Jimmy
Yeah.
from Degrassi, because my sisters watched
He was a
it.
basketball player in a wheelchair.
I mean, I get the appeal to him. You know what I mean? Some pop culture shit is cool, you know. But
I like Canadians.
It's Canadian pop culture.
his dad's from Memphis, though.
Oh, you're right. Texas.
That's the only thing I know about Drake's personal life.
Tennessee.
Is Raised in Toronto. Dad's from Memphis.
Cut that.
This is High Moments with Marcus Harkis.
Yeah, we're absolutely leaving all of that in. Welcome, everyone.
We dab before the
St. Paul
show.
Public School graduate.
Don't dab before you start work, people.
Or
Unless you stop after the first few hits.